To the Mendocino Historic Review Board meeting of March 7th, 2022, calling to order at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Planner Juliana Cherry, can you please read the participation information for this virtual meeting?
You're
muted.
Sorry about that. They're doing construction.
I can't wait to do this in person one day.
They're doing construction next door, so I will be trying to mute frequently during the meeting.
No problem.
But regarding public participation, the Mendocino Historical Review Board meetings are conducted virtually and not available for in-person public participation, pursuant with State Executive Order N-2920. Meetings are live streamed and available for viewing on the Mendocino County YouTube page at www.youtube.com/Mendocino County Video. In order to minimize the risk of exposure during this time of emergency, the public may participate digitally in meetings by sending comments to pbscommissions@mendocinocounty.org or orally by a telecomment in lieu of personal attendance. All public comment will be made immediately available to the review board, staff, and the general public as they are received and processed by staff and can be viewed as attachments to the meeting agenda. All requests for telecomment must have been received by 10 a.m. this morning.
Thank you. And it sounds like there's either power tools or a cat being tortured in the background. Either way, it's fine. I can hear you clear and well. Thank you. Can you please conduct roll call?
Sure. So I'd like to begin first with introducing some staff we haven't seen before. We have a new hire, new to the position. Brooke Larson is the board services supervisor. She's been with the county for a while, but it's nice to see her work and the promotion. Welcome. And then also, I don't know that the review board has met Planner Callie Ford before. She joined the department last fall, and this is a project in the historic district that she's working on. So she'll be presenting later today.
Again, welcome.
And Mark Kleiser and myself are also staff. So for roll call, Chair Roth.
Yeah, present.
Vice Chair Kapler.
Present.
Review Board Member Saunders.
Present.
And Review Board Member Madrigal.
I'm here.
So everyone is accounted for. Thank you.
Thank you. Plus the one member we're in search of, right? There we go. Okay. Agenda number 3 is the Mendocino Historic Review Board Administration. This is discussion and potential adoption, including adoption of resolution of the County of Mendocino Historic Review Board finding that state or local officials continue to recommend measures to promote social distancing in connection with public meetings. So do we need to do anything more other than vote on whether we want to support that or not? Or is there a public hearing on that?
I think you can vote on it.
Okay. I think the process is that we open up public hearing. If there's no one presenting or talking to it, any questions about this from board members? Okay, motion from the board on the adoption of the Historical Review Board Administration.
I'll make a motion to adopt the required resolution.
Thank you all.
I'll second.
Thanks, Alan. Want to do a real call or just how about a show of hands if you approve? Aye. Any objections? None.
Staff saw 4 hands approving the resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Our agenda item number 4, determination of legal notice. Has proper notice been established for this meeting?
Yes, proper notice has been established for this meeting.
Thank you so much. I'm glad we hit it on the mark this time. And actually, it's funny, after the last meeting, I think I mentioned to someone that I was listening to the news, and the San Francisco School Board ran into the same situation where they were trying to take a vote on some budget cutting and action items, and it wasn't noticed properly, so they had to kick the bucket down the road for a week. So it's not unheard of. So thank you for making it work this time. We just did agenda item number 5, approval of minutes. Let's take up the November 1st, 2021 minutes. Does anyone have any corrections, thoughts?
No.
Okay. I do have one. Under 9A, public hearing items. This is the MHRB 2021-0014. Under public comment, the opening statement is landowner William Zimmer stated when blah, 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 heard by the review board that the Brown Act may have been violated. I was slightly offended by that because there was no backup. It was just an accusation. So I would like to modify those minutes to state landowner William Zimmer, not stated, but conjectured without details or evidence that the Brown Act may have been violated. And the whole thought behind that was I don't like these like broad accusations about Brown Act, which I find very integral to what we do, to just be flown out the window without any sort of, I didn't want to respond to it at the meeting at the time, but I think that changing the minutes to review that it was a conjecture, not a blatant, I mean, it was a statement, but it was conjecture. And there was no details or evidence. So
I'm happy to make that change.
So, just a comment, why not take out conjecture and put stated, and then put the without, because that's what happened. He stated that, but there was no evidence or anything. Saying he conjectured is sort of putting thoughts into his head.
that's fine too.
Just saying he stated it, I think is better.
Okay. Stated without details or evidence.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
It might prevent further debate.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you for that modification. That's all I have. Is there a motion from one of our board members to approve the minutes of November 1st with the changes?
Sure. I'll make the motion to approve the November 1st, 2021 minutes as amended.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Show of hands. Aye. We have 4 hands up. Home? I'm assuming yes.
Boy, I can't hear it.
Oh, you froze.
All right, so staff saw 4 hands raised. So the November meeting minutes are approved with the clarification about without evidence.
Thank you. And I think it's without details or evidence. Which brings us to the February 7th, 2022 minutes. Do we have any corrections, changes, omissions?
Nope.
Please don't go ahead.
Yeah, I had a minor thing in item 11B. There's a reference to the Tesla website, and Tesla is misspelled.
Oh.
And then in the last sentence there, I think the word "for" is missing. The review board conferred and offered their support for the project. That's all, just very minor changes.
Were you an editor in a prior life?
I would be willing to move approval with those changes.
Hold on. I caught one that Holm didn't catch. On number 10B, reports from review board members. Very last line, MHRB application 2022-1. I think that's 2021-09. Is that right?
Oh, yeah,
Yes.
right.
And then the other thing I want to put in there, insert under 9, and this is not to rub salt in any wounds, but just for clarification, 9A and 9B, it says item 9A was not heard and will be added. Rather than keep the public who comes back and reads the record, I would like to put in item 9A was not heard due to lack of timely legal notice and will be added. And the same thing for 9B. Like I said, this is not salt and wound. This is just making the public aware about why it was moved.
Okay.
I would
Any
be
other-
fine to move approval with those changes.
Thanks, Holly. We have a second.
I'll second.
Show of hands and ayes. Raise your hand if you approve as amended. Aye. That's all 4 of us.
All right, so the February meeting minutes are approved by unanimous show of hands with the changes discussed.
And Planner Cherry, don't worry, I will ask for a roll call on the substantive issues. All right, which brings us to agenda item number 6, correspondence. Has any correspondence been received for items not on the posted agenda?
We have not received correspondence for items not on the agenda.
Okay. Item number 7, report from chair. Ad nauseum, I'm going to be a broken record. We're still looking for our 5th member. So reach out and grab anyone. No, I'm sorry. Spread the cheer that we are a fun group and that it's not the worst thing in the world. And we really need a 5th body. So there's my plea again. That's all I have to report. So moving to agenda item number 8, under public expression. The board welcomes participation in board meetings. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per person and not more than 10 minutes per proposed item on a subsequent agenda so that everyone may be heard. Items of public expression are limited to matters under the jurisdiction of the board, which are not on the posted agenda. So something that's not on the agenda. And items which have not already been considered by the board, no action will be taken as a result of public expression. So if you request to speak under public expression, please call in now. We thank you for your understanding during this difficult time. And thank you for your continued interest. Do we have any requests for telecomment under public expression?
Brooke, I'm sorry. I'm just looking at the people who signed in, and I'm not sure who Jeff Cobert is associated with. Did he want to speak under public expression, or have we received any requests under public expression, Brooke?
I do not believe that we have any requests under public expression, and I'm not sure we can ask.
I do see some raised hands, though. Ishvi's hand is raised, and Jeff Cobert's hand is raised. So perhaps we do have some people who would like to speak under public expression.
That would be great. Who was the first to raise their hand?
I
believe it was Jeff.
Okay, Jeff Corbett, please state your name and if you're representing someone, and you got 3 minutes to speak your mind on something that is not on the agenda.
No, I'm can you hear me, first of all?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so I am on the agenda. I filled out a formal request to speak to item number 0017. At the appropriate time, I'd like to speak about that.
So what we're going to do is when we get to 0017, I'm looking at my agenda right now. That is going to be
10D.
10D. So Mr. Corbett, if you don't mind, we will come back to you and get to 10D when we come to public hearing. you'll have your 3 minutes done. So hang tight and enjoy the free entertainment. And I think we have Ishvi. Is he still raising his hand?
Yes.
Please.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I was just calling in because I had actually sent in an application to fill your 5th seat on the board. And I think I spoke to you about that, Ian, a bit ago. So I'm not sure if you guys have my application there. I filled it out a few months ago.
Planner Chair?
So the process is that applicants contact the clerk of the board, and it is processed not through planning and building services, but processed through the clerk of the board. This morning, I contacted that office, and they have not processed an application for someone to sit on the review board. I can follow up and have some more conversations with them, or Ishvi, if you would like to contact them to see what the status of your application is. I think between the two of us, we can figure that out. Thank you for volunteering to be on the board.
Yeah, I'll find that. It was a few months ago through the clerk, so I'll try to figure out where that's gone.
Okay, thank you.
And Ishvi, I'll give you a holler offline,
So,
okay?
We pulled it up online, and they approved it on December 23rd.
They didn't approve it. They said that that it's with the registrar on December 23rd. Atlas Pearson, the deputy clerk, confirmed that they have it.
Does that help you guys?
So it's March now. So it's been
Right. Well, happy to look into it, but we can't do that during public expression of the review board meeting. Let's follow up with that later on.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Ishvi. Thank you for your
And I
interest.
think that is decided by this. Sorry, I think that is decided by the supervisor for the district. So I think Ted Williams makes those appointments, right? Like once the clerk gets it. So yeah, we'll find out where that is.
Close to what I think it's handed to the District 5 supervisor, which is Ted Williams, and he has the ability to bring it in front of the full board for approval if that's so. If that's where he wants to go. And typically the other board members respect that it's within his jurisdiction. So they will definitely have a conversation about that. Thank you for bringing that up, Ishvi. I appreciate it. Do we have any more? Go ahead, Holm.
I'm seem to be having trouble with my internet connection. You guys are freezing from time to time, and I can't hear. I don't know if that's just my situation here or whether other people are experiencing this also, but it's a little awkward.
Anyone? I haven't had any issues with that today. Is anyone else?
No.
Okay, it's just me. All right, I'll try to stumble forward.
Actually,
yeah,
this morning I was having a lot of problems. I think I was knocked off the internet 10 times before noon today, and I connected my computer directly using an Ethernet cable rather than Wi-Fi, and that seemed to resolve my internet broadband problem.
Well, I don't know how to do that, so.
so Holm, if we get to a point and you missed out on part of the discussion, just please raise your hand and we'll do a quick recap of what you missed.
Okay.
Also, you could call in if you wanted to not do video. Another option would be to reduce the demand on your Wi-Fi. You could turn off your video and participate just using the audio. So calling in, turning off the video, not having the audio on when you're not speaking, all of that can improve the internet connection.
If I
one day we'll say one day we are going to roll technology instead of technology ruling us.
I've just lost you again.
Yeah, you're kind of cutting in and out. She's saying if you want to cut your video and call in with your phone, then that's probably going to be less bandwidth. The use of your internet might be easier.
Okay.
The top
What
of the agenda does have a telephone number that you can call in, and Brooke can then add you to the meeting if you end up wanting to use the telephone line rather than the computer.
Yeah, which telephone line am I supposed to be using?
The instructions are there on the front page of the meeting agenda.
Yeah, there's a zillion numbers here.
Ian, maybe we could
No,
take a 3-minute break and I
Yeah.
could help home with this.
Let's do that.
Right.
Let's take 3 minutes. If you want to put your clock on, and I'll keep everyone posted. And if you can help
Okay.
home, that'd be great.
All right.
Okay.
So home, I'm just navigating over to
let me know, Brooke.
I will let you know.
And welcome to the new position. Congratulations.
Thank you. Okay, we have returned.
Okay. Welcome back, everyone. We ducked out a bit to get one of our board members back online so that we don't have internet issues. Hopefully that's Home Kapler. If you're watching the screen, he's not on video, but he is the green and white icon with Home Kapler in the lower left square. So with that, thank you for your patience. We've closed public expression. We're going to consent calendar, which we have no items. Is that correct? I see Planner Cherry agreeing with that, which will bring us to our first public hearing item, which is MHRB case 2021-0009 Wickersham. And I believe Planner Mark Kleiser is going to bring this to us, but in brief, this application Mendocino Historic Review Board permit to re-roof the carriage house and studio with new Corton standing seam roof material, extend the picket fence and repair portions of the fence, replace gutters with aluminum gutters, and replace windows with dual pane white, oh, that's interesting, white aluminum clad window frames, and extend the walkway and cover existing pathways with stone and brick. This location is listed in the Mendocino Town Plan. Appendix 1 is Category 1 historic structure as the Blair House. And I believe before everyone gets all excited, Mark Kleiser, planner, is going to tell us that the application has no longer asked for aluminum clad frames, that everything's going to be wood. So Planner Kleiser, do we have any correspondence or telephone calls that have been received related to this item?
No, we have not.
So would you please proceed and present this item to the board and our wonderful public staff, our public viewers?
Okay. Yes, thank you very much. Mark Kleiser, Planner 2. I'm planner for this project, MHRB 2021-0009. And as stated, the applicant is no longer proposing aluminum clad windows for this project and instead will be proposing wooden windows. The project is within the Mendocino Multiple Family Residential District and is located on Little Lake, south of Covelo Street and west of Ford. As noted, the structure on site is a Category 1 historical structure. And just to briefly review, the applicant is proposing to re-roof the carriage house and the studio on the property. These are both located north of the main house. There will be portions of a picket fence repaired west of the main house, and the fence will be extended all the way to the eastern side of the parcel. The applicant's proposing replacing gutters on the main house, extending walkways, and covering existing walkways with stone and brick. At the site visit, oh, we already discussed that. So let me go through then briefly with my presentation. Brooke, can I share screen?
Yes.
And real quickly, while you're doing that, Planner Kleiser, can you sort of, this is not the first time that we've heard this application. So as we're doing this, can you sort of give us a rundown as to the timeline of when the applicant has come before the board and the history of what we've done since that first presentation, please?
Well, I don't have the exact date. I apologize. The application did come to staff last year. It was brought to the board early last year. The board wanted to review the aluminum clad windows. At the time, the aluminum clad windows were not available for viewing, so the project was continued to a date uncertain. The applicant did get the windows. A site review was scheduled, and it was at that site review in January that the review board went out to look at the aluminum clad windows, and it was then announced that the aluminum clad windows would not be used and they would be using wooden windows, which brings us up to date now.
And just as an aside, these other times when the board heard the application, the only action that was taken was to continue the application so as to allow the process to go forward, correct?
Yes.
Okay, please proceed. Thank you.
Okay. So we've gone over what the applicant is proposing, and I'll just go through this briefly with these photographs here. So here we have the cottage, and this is the studio on the right, if I'm not mistaken. The applicant's proposing standing seam roof, Corten standing seam roof. During the last site visit, the applicant said that the studio was going to be re-roofed with a different material. At this time, I don't know what that material is, but we do have the applicant and agent online today. So I imagine they will fill us in on that. So these are the two structures that will be re-roofed. This one is being proposed with a standing seam, and this studio here is with the alternate roofing. These are samples of the roofing material, Corten standing seam roofing. And here is another example of what it will look like. And finally, this is a building in Mendocino on the corner of Lansing and Albion. I believe that this is a sample of Corten standing seam roofing on this building. This is the only building I've found in Mendocino that has this type of roofing. And that concludes my brief presentation. Staff does recommend approval of this project pending.
Stop sharing.
Oh, yes. The board's discussion, and I'm here for any questions.
Thank you so much. I see that our applicant presentation is going to be the architect Kelly Grimes. Is he present and accounted for?
Yes.
Yes, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Thank you, Kelly.
All right. Thank you, Chair Roth. I just want to make one correction there in Planner Kleiser's presentation. If we went back to those three pictures he showed of the standing seam roofing, Corten is simply a manufacturer's name. It's a type of product that it's a metal roof, but once it rusts, it's got some sort of patented formula in it that stops the process of rusting. And so it just remains a rusty metal surface for its whole life, as opposed to the third building that was shown just a moment ago over the old cookie company and that whole building. It used to be a parking garage or an automobile garage. That building, that is not Corten. That is just simply orange standing seam metal roofing. And the second building, it was just blue or red standing seam metal roofing. Those are not Corten products. Corten is specifically the first slide that was shown. It has a very unique look, and it just simply looks like rusty metal. It doesn't look like painted metal. Big difference. So we're still proposing to use that on the outbuildings. We're still proposing the cross fencing, and we're still proposing to put some stone and brick combination over the existing concrete pathways, and make a new one on the back side or the west side of the building. And we did remove the aluminum clad wood windows, and also we're still doing some work on the gutter. We're probably not going to replace them with aluminum clad or aluminum gutters. We're trying to figure out a way to make, because the gutters are very much a part of that building. So we're trying to figure out a way to magically make a wooden gutter work. And the roof was done recently, if you all have noticed. And there were a couple elements of the roof that were removed and not put back on. So we're still working on trying to get that right. You may look at it and it looks a little clunky right now. It's because I think it's because the top shingles there, the cap shingles are just a little bit overzealous, and there used to be a ridge pole up there, but we're working on getting that right. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Grimes. Hey,
thank you.
Brooke, can you and Planner Kleiser, can you go back and bring up that one building that you showed with the roof?
Yeah,
yes, that one.
There we go.
Mr. Grimes, is that the roof that we should be looking at as a facsimile of what you're
exactly
proposing?
Exactly.
Okay, great. Thank you for that clarification.
Thank you.
Okay, at this point, we're going to declare the public hearing open. We're going to address commenters that have submitted their form, waiting on the line. Do we have any telecommenters that have wished to speak upon this plan?
I don't see him.
I believe this gentleman, Rick Sachs, would like to speak.
Yeah, good afternoon, folks.
Welcome.
I just wanted to comment on standard seam roofing, that it's a very modern look. And I don't see any in Mendocino, and it's very different than the look of the corrugated metal roof on the shell building. Thank you. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Mr. Sachs. Appreciate that. Do we have anyone else for public comment?
Do not believe so.
Okay, so we're going to close the public hearing. Let's bring this back to the board. Please share your comments, board members.
Maybe this is home. Maybe I can kick it off with some small comments. As we all know, this is the Blair House, and it's certainly one of the most iconic buildings in Mendocino. And I'd just like to express my appreciation to Mr. Wickersham for the beautiful new wooden shingle roof that he has installed on the house, and also for his decision to replace only unrepairable windows with wooden windows. And I think he deserves the thanks of the whole community for what he has done and is doing. And that being said, I could accept the proposed metal roofs. I have no issues with the fence work or the walkways. I did have a comment on the wooden gutters, but my question was, why couldn't they be repaired? Why couldn't they be lined with a plastic liner? And I think what I just heard is that, in fact, that is what we're looking at. We're trying to make the wooden gutters work. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Well, then, given that, I congratulate you on the project. I have no problems with it.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Board Member Kapler. Member Saunders Madrigal. Go ahead, Ms. Madrigal.
Yeah, I somewhat agree. It was good to do this site visit out there. The metal roofing is going to be on that back rear cottage. So the Blair House is such a very focal, beautiful building, and the metal roofing that they're considering will be like in the back, like almost to the alley. It's not very visible from the street. And the way that roofing is meant to patina to rust, I think would look quite good back there. So I'm in support of the application.
Thank you, Board Member Madrigal. Board Member Sanders. You're muted, Ellen. There you go.
Yeah, I'd echo all those comments, and I'm learned a lot from the site visit, so that was interesting too. So yeah, I really have no negative comments at this point, and I'm okay with what's proposed.
Thank you. I'm going to be the lone voice, and that's fine, because I first want to say thank you to Mr. Wickersham for taking this beautiful property under his wing and investing a lot of funds to keep it exemplary. It's always fun when someone knows about Mendocino. I say they're trying to orient themselves. Have you ever seen the Blair House? You know, all the lore with it. And everyone goes, yeah, they know that one. So it's a very iconic property. My issue with the standing seam metal roof is that it's a very beautiful roof. Absolutely love the concept. It stands proud, it stands tall, it stands elegant. And so I'm trying to figure out, and ever since I saw this project roll out, I've been trying to figure out, why would you put a standing seam metal roof, which is something that is not inexpensive, it's very bold, on an outbuilding? To me, the outbuildings are secondary to the main property. And my gut feeling keeps telling me that it should just be a comp shingle roof, or, you know, what the equivalent, whatever we can support with design review. But I just don't see that an outbuilding really wants to have a standing seam metal roof. It's like an oxymoron. An outbuilding is an outbuilding. It shouldn't be a primary focus. And my concern is that standing seam metal roof on an outbuilding is going to draw the attention away from the Blair House itself. So I don't want to shoot down the project. I want to go forward, but I just don't think that roof's appropriate. And so that's where I stand. And I don't know if I've swayed any of the other board members or not. If I have, great. And if not, then this is a democracy, and that's why we're a board, and that's why we have our independent thoughts. And this is all out and open. There's no Brown Act that's being violated. So any thoughts?
Chair Roth, I did notice that there's a hand raise in the attendees, a Grover. I don't know if the if the public part has been closed, but
I don't see it on my side.
It's Planner Kleiser. If I may, through the chair, I was wondering, Mr. Grimes could elaborate on the alternate roofing for the studio, if that's still being proposed, or are they going to be doing standing seam on both of the structures?
Mr. Grimes?
Right now, I believe we're going to do standing seam on both of the bigger structures. The middle structure, I think there was some talk about doing the asphalt shingles.
Okay.
I think it's difficult because to a certain degree, I think that a rusty metal roof on some outbuildings is very historical. And, I think that the owner of the property should be able to do what he wants within the confines of the town. I think the idea that the Blair House is held to this, holier than thou standard and is put up on this pedestal, I think is a little bit onerous for Mr. Wickersham. I don't see that historically how you couldn't have a rusty metal roof on any of your outbuildings. I don't see how that's not appropriate. So, I understand the idea that a standing seam is more of a modern thing because he didn't come up with the whole idea to conceal the attachment until later in life. But it rusts out. It looks pretty historical, and I don't think it's going to detract from the Blair House. But I think that holding the Blair House to this standard that's pretty unattainable for anyone else is not fair. Thank you.
And don't get me wrong, I wasn't holding the Blair House to a standard that no one else had. It's just that it's one of those images that people they know. And now I see Grover has a hand up, and I'd love to have a comment if it's quick.
Hi, Ian.
Please identify who you are.
It's Grover Wickersham.
Thank you.
Yeah. I was interested in your comment, and so I just wanted to explain that I work fairly closely with Kelly House, and they have an insurance report. You may be familiar with it, but it was done in 1890. It was sort of an insurance review of the whole village, or most of the houses in the village. And so in reviewing that report, that's where I found out that the outbuildings originally had tin roofs. So I'm kind of fanatical about trying to bring the Blair House back to keep it as authentic as possible. And I understand I do have the option of going with the asphalt. For fire reasons, I wouldn't want to go with wood on the outbuildings. But if I can make it work without it costing, a fortune or not working, I would go with the metal. I'd like to say, that is historically relevant. I'd also like to mention really quickly, the issue with the gutters is that they are a design defect. They look great, and I love them, and Kelly does too. But the problem is that they have caused leakage into the side of the structure. And I could get the board some pictures, but it's, it does pretty horrendous damage because they don't have the right capacity. But Miss Cherry came up with a suggestion that we're following up on, where you might be able to get something that looks like wood, but has greater capacity. And we're hoping to look into that. I'd like to keep the original look, absolutely. So I'd just like to mention how fanatical I am about it, is that in doing research, I found out that paint with a sheen, semi-gloss paint or sheen paint wasn't invented until the 1920s. So we've waited a year and a half for a top-of-the-line paint from Sherwin-Williams that is flat paint, like would have been on the house in the 1880s. But it's a special new invention that has that repels dirt when rain hits it. So that'll enable us to keep it maintained and looking better than normal flat paint. Anyway, sorry to go on, but I thought I should explain to you, Ian, that we are trying to be historically sensitive with the tin roof.
Thank you. And for the record, Grover is Grover Wickersham, who's the owner of the property and applicant. Okay. Any other comments from, yes, Board Member Madrigal?
I just wanted to add also that the maintenance schedule for long-term maintenance for a metal roof is better than a composite shingle, as far as like the need to replace it and come before the board again. Yeah, so I'd be happy to make a motion when you're ready.
Please, go ahead.
I would move approval of MHRB permit 2021-0009 with the notation that the windows have been making sure to note that the aluminum windows has been taken out of that.
Is there a second?
I can second that.
There's a second from Board Member Saunders.
Yes.
Okay. Planner Cherry, roll call vote.
Yes, thank you. Chair Roth?
Nay.
Board Member Kapler? I don't see Kapler on my screen.
Ooh, that's no bueno.
Board member.
Sorry, he's listed as an attendee. Holm, can you hear us?
There we go. So it's *6 to unmute yourself, Board Member Kapler. *6 on the phone to unmute. I'll continue with the vote while Holm unmutes himself. Board Member Saunders, what is your vote?
Aye.
And Board Member Madrigal, what is your vote?
Aye.
Okay. And Board Member Kapler, if you could unmute your phone, by pressing *6. It is *6 to unmute the phone.
Have we ever taken an intermission in the middle of a vote?
Yeah.
This is pretty important.
Yeah. Unless we can get Ian to change his mind. It's a joke.
And as I've said, I'm very much in favor of the application. It's just the
Understood.
I don't like the standing seam on a secondary outbuilding.
Understood.
Brooke, can you at all assist with unmuting?
I have tried.
Okay, thank you.
Is there anyone local can go and knock on his door?
All right. Well, one thing we could do is we could pause the vote or pause the public hearing item on this and continue it to later in the meeting. And
my only concern is that if board member Kapler is frozen out of the meeting, I'd rather not proceed and then I have to catch up again. So
right.
Can we take 3 to 5 minutes to try to work with Holm on whatever we can do to get him back on?
All right, so.
And it might be better to have him, log back into Zoom, honestly. It might be better to have him log back on Holm if you can hear us. And we could at least get a visual affirmative from you, maybe?
All right, so what I hear is we're going to take a break and
Yes,
contact Holm to figure this out.
Yes,
and I believe it's 5 minutes of 3. So are you thinking a 5-minute break?
Yeah, let's reconvene at 3 o'clock. How's that?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And if Molly, if you could take us off air, that'd be great.
All right,
All right.
so if I may, I was in the middle of taking a roll call vote. A motion had been made by Madrigal to approve the project without aluminum clad windows, but wood window frames. And the motion was seconded by Saunders. I heard votes from review board members Roth, Saunders, and Madrigal. And I'd like to inquire of Home Kapler, what is your vote?
Yes, and I did follow the entire discussion, and my vote is to support the motion, so to vote aye.
Thank you. So the motion passes 3-1 with Roth dissenting. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you, Juliana. Okay, that takes us to our second public hearing item. Agenda item number 10B, MHRB application 2021-0014 Zimmer. This is an after the fact Mendocino Historic Review Board permit for a double-faced painted wood sign hanging perpendicular to the building fronting Ukiah Street from a black painted metal bracket. Sign colors are off white and gold. Sign copy to read Nahara Healing Arts. Relocation of barge north sign from previous location fronting Ukiah Street to location fronting Lansing Street. Copy will read barge north. Sign will be single-faced and flush-mounted display case adjacent to Baby Le Pen, fronting Ukiah Street. And an after-the-fact request for Baby Le Pen sign to be planted in planted area fronting Ukiah Street. And noting that barge north is no longer going to be occupying that space. I'd love to hear the updates on that. So, Planner Mark Kleiser, have we had any correspondence or telephone calls received related to this item?
No correspondence.
Okay. Can you please do your wonderful staff presentation for us?
Yes, thank you. As noted, Barge North has pulled their request for a sign at this location, so that is now off the application. Mark Kleiser, Planner 2 for MHRB 2021-0014. A brief history of this permit request. This was heard at the September Review Board meeting of 2021. The vote failed 2-2, and a second motion was made to continue the item to November of 2021. At that meeting, the board requested clarification on the violations of the site, and the project was continued to a date uncertain, which brings us to today. The project is located within the Mendocino Commercial District and is located at the southeast corner of Lansing and Ukiah. As discussed, the applicant is proposing an after-the-fact permit for a double-faced painted wood sign hanging perpendicular to the building fronting Ukiah Street from a black painted metal bracket. And the sign will read Nahara Healing Arts. They're proposing a display case adjacent to Baby Le Pen fronting Ukiah Street and an after-the-fact permit for Baby Le Pen sign in the planted area in front of Ukiah Street. Two of these items on the application have come before the board previously on MHRB permit 2019-0004. The display case and the Baby Le Pen sign in the planted area have both been heard. At the December 2019 MHRB meeting, the review board approved the display case. However, as the applicant was unable to secure a contractor to construct the case, the request expired in January, and the applicant is bringing it before the review board again at this time. At the same meeting, the review board denied a 9.5 by 36 inch plywood sign for Baby Le Pen above the business entrance. Staff would like to note that that sign has been removed by the business owner and is no longer there. And also at the December 2019 MHRB meeting, the review board denied the request for the after-the-fact Baby Le Pen sign that is in the planted area today. Mendocino County Code section 20.760.080 states that no application which has been previously denied and is not substantially changed will be accepted by the review board for a period of 6 months from the date of denial. As it has been more than 6 months, the applicant would like to bring this back to the review board for additional consideration. Staff has also prepared an alternate location for the sign for the board's consideration. And if I might share my screen right now, I'd like to walk through some of the items that are being proposed.
And Planner Clad, for clarification, which sign has been removed?
It was the Baby Le Pen eyebrow sign over the door of Baby Le Pen.
Thank you.
And let's see. Okay. And I would also like to note too that the property was in violation in several spots. Those violations have been cleared, including the Baby Le Pen eyebrow sign. So let me see. Okay, this is the Healing Arts, Nahara Healing Arts sign that is being requested to be permitted. And this is what the sign will look like. This is the display case. This will be adjacent to Baby Le Pen. This is from the 2019 permit. And the display case will appear on this wall right here. This, of course, is the Baby Le Pen sign in the planted area. There's another shot of it. And staff is recommending an alternate location just in case that the sign be hung perpendicular to this building here, facing east and west on Ukiah Street. And that concludes my presentation. Staff recommends approval with any conditions. If you have any questions, I am here to answer them. Thank you.
Real quickly, where it has a sign here, is that on Frankie's Pizza?
That is, yes.
Okay.
So, can I ask a quick question that
Yes.
the proposal is not the alternate sign?
No, the proposal is here in the plate area where you see the sign now. But
right, we just keep that there. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Is the applicant present? Bill Zimmer or representative?
Believe Bill Zimmer is present, yes.
We are here.
All right, Mr. Zimmer, can you please present your case why we should approve this?
Okay.
Or what you please present your application.
Okay. I'd give you a very brief history of why it was irregular in its process. I note that Mark's current staff report notes that the sign was not approved because of it being irregular in its presentation, and because we were limited to one sign. So we eliminated the other sign, and we had approval from the planning department to use the procedure that I proposed to them. I will tell you why I proposed it to them. Baby Le Pen was occupying a space next to a storage room that I was converting into a little office or retail rental unit over that winter. And Lisa and I are good friends, and she would stick her nose in and check it out, progress report. And then one day she says, I might consider moving in here. So she did. Problem was we were going to be gone for 14 weeks. We could not in any way go before the board before we were gone. So I went up to the planning department and I said, I'd like to file a permit and pay the fees, but I'm not going to be able to be around to have it heard for months. They said, fine. In other words, they approved of my proposal that I go ahead, put the sign in. I may very well have already put it in, and that they would hear it later. Now, in putting it in where I did, I looked around town to see what are the standards for signs. Obviously, square footage is one. How about location? Now, I don't know if you guys can see anything. Can you see us right now?
No.
Well, at one of our meetings over this sign, I showed 12 photos of 12 different signs, similarly sized, similarly located, similarly hung around town. And some, in fact, have been, since you declined my sign, you okayed somebody else's, for instance, the film festival. So let me go back to my little script here. By the way, I've been before the board. It looks like on Mark's staff report. This is the 24th meeting I've been before about this property. I've never had a problem with the review board until this time. I've always respected their opinions, and I think they got it wrong in this one. And for the life of me, I've never found out what the problem is if I followed the proper procedure, and I've only got one sign. Okay. At the meeting where it was denied, at the very last minute, Deirdre Lamb, who was the chairperson of the board, presented a paper which was shoved in front of my face about 15 minutes before the meeting opened, from her landlord across the street from me, objecting to the number of signs that were on my building. And I was not prepared for that. I won't call it an attack, but it certainly was an ambush. Since that time, I took a look at, I counted the signs on her building. She had 23 signs for 7 businesses. My building had 8 signs for 7 businesses. Deirdre Lamb was a tenant over there. She should have recused herself. She's a realtor. She's a prospective seller of that property for the owner that wrote that letter. She should have recused herself. But then Ian, who was then on the board, told me after the fact that there had been a Brown Act violation.
I'm sorry. Did you say that I said there was a Brown Act violation?
Yes. Yes.
No, that's totally inaccurate.
All right. Well, I will tell you this. On the strength of that, I went up to the planning department and I asked to hear a vocal recording of what went on of that meeting. I heard it. I listened to it twice. And she had said before the meeting, well, I mean, in the course of the meeting, this shouldn't take long. We've already talked about this. I heard this twice, Ian. If that's a violation of the Brown Act, I think it is.
Okay. So thank you.
So
Thank you for that.
I'm saying she should have recused herself.
Okay, I want to say thank you for that clarification because it was a kind of a broad statement without any factual. I now recall what you're referring to, so thank you for that clarification.
And I would love to show you the 12 different signs around town, which are by no means a comprehensive survey of signs that are just like ours.
And I'm also here too, Lisa Hoffman, the owner of Baby Le Pen, in case you have any questions for me.
Thank you, Lisa. Okay. I assume that our applicant is Mr. Zimmer. Have you concluded your remarks?
Let me just a moment. I believe I have, yes.
Should I say anything about it?
Yes.
Second. Ian, may I say something?
Yes, you may, Lisa. Go ahead.
President Ian.
Yes, I'm not president. I'm just chair of the review board. Lisa, please speak your mind.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon. I would like to say that second proposal where the sign would be positioned on Frankie's building, I'm concerned about that. For one, I'm not sure that Frankie's business would like that. There's also the potential for it to block their sign. We have not spoken to them about it. So we are not really in agreement for that location.
Also, I'd like to point out that sign would be 5.5 feet from her entrance. And I think that one reason Frankie's wouldn't like it is I think they'd have a lot of people poking their head in looking for Baby Le Pen in their building. I mean, Baby Le Pen Frankie's has rented that building. I don't want to impose this on them.
we also, I know you know my business is set back, so it is critical that I have east-west visibility to my business, and that's what I'm looking for.
Eye level, east-west visibility. And the only place that provides, I would say, the best of that would be where it currently is. So I'm asking you to vote yes on maintaining it the way it is.
Thank you, both Bill and Lisa. At this point, we're going to close the applicant presentation. Looking to Brooke, do we have any telecommenters that want to speak during the public hearing portion?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
Sachs would want to speak on this as a member of the public.
And so that would be our public hearing. So Mr. Sachs, please proceed.
I just got a notice saying that somebody wanted me to speak and I didn't raise my hand to speak. But I'd sure like to see this whole matter come to a conclusion and be over and done with. So I'm hoping you guys will use whatever wisdom you have to make that happen. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. So we're going to close public hearing. Board members, speak your mind. Board member Magical.
I just have a quick question, Ian.
Yeah.
Since I'm new to this particular building and issue, the Siegel, can you just clarify for the public, do you have a conflict with this? Is your in part of this building or anything like that? Okay, I just want to like the Siegel building.
That's right. That's right. The Siegel restaurant was owned by David Herschel Jones. It burned down in 1976. It was rebuilt as the current structure that we have. The Siegel restaurant tried to make a go of it for a few years. It did not work, and its current iteration is residence for Mr. Zimmer, and then all the retail that is around that structure. My ownership of the Siegel Inn started 3.5 years ago. It's adjacent to the old Siegel restaurant, but has no direct connection, no business relationship. Bill Zimmer is my neighbor, but regardless of the outcome of this item, I will have no financial gain or loss. So thank you for asking for that clarification. I appreciate it.
And on the application, I am supportive of the solution that's been put forward, not with the alternate sign location, but for the one that's in the planter and Nahara's. So I'm generally in support of the application as it is.
Okay, thank you. Board member Kapler or Saunders?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I've been having problems again, but
we can even see you.
Basically, I have no problems with any of the signs, and I could agree to the large Baby Le Pen sign in the planted area on Ukiah Street. So I'm au fait with all of the proposals that have been made with regard to this application.
Thank you. Member Kapler. Saunders?
So from my point of view, I think there was the one sign that's going to be removed that we have to make sure we get in the motion. I kind of agree with Mr. Zimmer that and the other lady, Lisa, that putting the sign on Frankie's is not a good alternative. So as proposed, I think I'm in favor of it too. So, and the Nahara sign as well. So the Nahara sign and the Baby Le Pen sign plus the removal is fine with me.
Thank you, Board Member Saunders. For the record, Vice Chair Kapler is he supersedes me by I think 2 or 3 months. Is that correct? On the board?
Yes.
So go ahead.
I'm sorry, I don't know what you're asking me now. I mean, I was on the board the last time this issue came up. Yes.
Yeah, so we are the institutional history, which goes about 4 years deep, which isn't a whole lot. I do remember this coming up a number of times. And the issue was that we don't really have signs in the sidewalk supported by 4x4 posts. It's kind of in your face. It's not my favorite. I've always listened to Lisa, and I do appreciate her, and being a business person myself now, I understand the need for signage to direct people to your spot. I kind of like the concept of using the building that's owned by Mr. Zimmer, who owns all the properties in the buildings, the physical structures of using that. Frankie's Pizza, the side, the corner, to be able to put off the sidewalk onto the building, which is more conforming than others. And yes, I know Mr. Zimmer, there's in front of that building, which used to have, like, what is this now? It's the study club, changes hands so often. They do definitely have a board of signs, but it's a board of signs that is familiar kind of throughout the town, as opposed to a single one that calls out a single business. Not my favorite, but I would like to see this put to rest, as Mr. Sachs has brought up. I want businesses to prosper and succeed, because that's what makes this village work. I'm not going to stand on circumstance, and so slightly reluctantly, I will vote yes on this as well. So if that's what we have going on, Planner Cherry, Senior Planner Cherry, if you can do roll call for this application, MHRB 2021-0014, please.
Need a motion.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
A motion or a second.
We need a motion. That's right. Thank you.
I'll make a motion to approve permit 2021-0014, subject to the conditions set out in the staff report, including approval of the Baby Le Pen sign in the planted area.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Thank you, Board Member Saunders.
All right, thank you.
Tanner, we get roll call, please.
So Board Member Madrigal, what is your vote?
Yes.
I'm Board Member Roth.
Aye.
Board Member Saunders.
Aye.
And Board Member Kapler.
Aye.
So this application for signs is unanimously approved by the review board. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. All right. As we move through our agenda, we're now on item 10C. This is, excuse me, MHRB application 2021-0016. Mendocino Historic Review Board permit for replacement of exterior stairway and L2 landing deck, entrance to the second floor apartment with adjoining roof. Move the downstairs office entry from east to north wall. Construct a new landing deck with roof on the north side of residence for the first floor entry. Add new exterior lighting to both landings and stairway. Add new window to second floor landing. Move existing fronts to property line and install water tank in enclosed space. This location is listed in the Mendocino Town Plan Appendix 1 as a Category 1 historic structure and as the Pete Anderson House. Planner Mark Kleiser, have we have any correspondence or telephone calls that have been received related to this item?
No correspondence received.
Thank you so much. Will you please give our staff presentation?
Yes, Mark Kleiser, Planner 2. I'm Planner for MHRB 2021-0016. Before I begin my presentation, I'd like to point out that there were some errors in the staff report regarding the attachments. They were labeled wrong. I will be walking through those attachments later in my presentation, so that will clear that up. Additionally, the project description has an error in it that staff only caught this morning. The description inaccurately states that the downstairs office entry will move from the east wall to the north, and that's actually going to be moving from the west wall to the north wall. The project is located within the Mendocino Commercial District and is located on Lansing Street between Little Lake and Calpella. The applicant is proposing renovation of the structure at the corner of Lansing and Little Lake, and it will include the replacement of the exterior stairway and landing with an adjoining roof. This will be the entrance for the second floor apartment. Relocation of the downstairs office entry from the west wall to the north wall. Construction of a new landing with roof on the north side of the structure for that new entryway. New lighting will be added to the landings and the stairway. A new window will be added to the second floor landing. They will move the existing fence to the property line, installation of a water tank in an enclosed space, and an after-the-fact authorization of a commercial sign on Calpella Street. As stated, the location is listed as a Category 1 historic structure. 3 of these items are potentially exempt from the provisions of Mendocino County Chapter 20.760, and these include the water storage tank. This tank will be screened from view. Outdoor lighting, provided it is shielded, reflected downward, and positioned in a manner that does not allow light glare to extend beyond the property, and the fence, which would screen on off-street parking. And I am going to share my screen now and walk you through these items. Okay. This first item here is the replacement of the exterior stairway and landing deck with an adjoining roof. So this is the new stairway that's being proposed on the west side, and the new roof and the new landing. And here's a different view from it, looking east. Relocation of the downstairs office entry from the west wall to the north wall. So this is currently where the office entry is on the west wall, and the new location will move it to the north wall with the roof covering. The lighting is pretty straightforward. The applicant is proposing these types of fixtures, and they will be cast downward. Lighting will appear here on the west-facing landings and stairs. Here is looking north at a sconce where it will be. From above. And this is the new window on the west-facing side of the residence or the building. The fence is currently located here, and it will be moved forward, northward, and will appear here. The water tank will be behind this area here. And the fence will be shielding from public view the water tank and off-street parking, the pump house, and the propane tank. The water tank is 3,000 gallons. And this, oops, excuse me. This is looking south. This is the new fence, and the water tank will be here behind this 8-foot fence. And it will be shielded from public view. And finally, the sign. The sign will be relocated from, it was originally on Lansing Street, and it will be moved to this new commercial space on Calpella. This is how the sign will be designed. In October of 2015, the review board approved MHRB 2015-21, and this allowed for a single side version of this newly proposed sign, which will appear on Calpella Street. And staff is recommending approval of this project with conditions, and that concludes my presentation, and I'm here for any questions.
I have a quick question. Did you say a single-sided sign? It's not both sides?
No. The new sign is double-sided. In 2015, the review board approved a single-sided version of this sign right here. So it'll just be a mirror image then.
Yeah, I have a question. You didn't mention any of the roofing materials for the new roof or materials for the door. Are they the same as the existing doors and roof, I guess, would be my question.
I will let the applicant speak to that. He is on the line.
Okay.
today.
Okay.
Details. Any other questions?
Thank you. Do we have, is Ishvi here to present the applicant's side of this? I see a hand up. Can you unmute yourself, please? There we go. You're on.
All right. Yes, to answer your question, the roofing materials and doors would match the existing roofing materials and doors.
Okay. Anything else you want to add to that?
I mean, I think that Mark did a pretty good job describing the project. The big problem that we're trying to resolve here is that currently the entrance to the office space on the first floor goes underneath the deck and stair to the second story. And there's posts and framing in the way. It's a very, very awkward and, in my opinion, unsafe setup. So that's the main thing we were trying to resolve with this project.
Okay. Thank you. If that's all, we're going to open up the public hearing. Do we have any telecommenters that have submitted for discussion on this item?
Yes.
And who do we have on queue?
Good afternoon. This is Kelly Grimes.
Okay, thank you. So as you all know, when called to speak, please state your name for the record. 3 minutes per person. You've done this before. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Chair Ron. First of all, I want to commend Ishvi on those fantastic drawings. I can appreciate good drawings that show you exactly what they're proposing. I would like to point out that this is a Category 1 structure. That's the exact same category as the Blair House. And if you look in the appendix where it talks about the categories, the Category 1 is a landmark. That means the construction is dated, history is substantiated, and only minor alterations in character with original architecture. So the question here we have is, is changing the staircase and relocating the door to the other wall, is this a significant alteration? And, is it changing the character of the building? And let me just point out, if we went back and we were able to look at the pictures of the building as it exists today, the upper balcony has some knee bracing that is enclosed. So, that little character defining element, the fact that the stairs approach the upstairs landing from the side, the front of the landing is framed like a window. These are all character defining elements of this building, which is a Category 1. It's a big deal. And it should be treated as a big deal, and it shouldn't be treated as an inconvenience or it's not a safety concern. It hasn't been a safety concern for 120 years. And, it needs to be a little more creative possibly in addressing some of the issues that Ishvi has with the site and leasing the property. But I think changing the staircase is a huge mistake as far as changing the character of this Category 1 building. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else we have on public comment?
Let's see. It looks like Ishvi would like to speak again. And I don't have any other hands raised.
Okay, please proceed, Ishvi.
Thank you. I would just like to respond to Kelly's comments. We actually worked pretty hard in our design to adhere very closely to all of the elements that were original to this structure. To our knowledge, that staircase and upper landing was built in the 1960s. and was not actually, because it was a shed roof, it did not, to my look, my eye, appear to match the rest of the architecture. The front on Lansing Street, the portico at the front has a hip roof, as well as the original porch facing south also had a hip roof. So we thought that it was more in keeping with the original historical nature of this house to actually change the roof line on the landing above to a hip. Supplying the northern entrance portico, yes, it is a change to the structure, but I think it's very much in keeping with the architectural design. We thought about adding those knee braces that Kelly mentioned, but again, those are only on the 1960s addition to the structure and are not present on the south and east porticos, which I think are the primary historical markers that we have. I don't think we're changing the architectural style. I think what we're doing is actually enhancing the property. This is a corner house. It's a very prominent house. And that current staircase configuration is not only unsafe and does not meet the current codes, it is quite poorly constructed. It has a posts coming down in front of the entry, as I stated before. And so we thought we were enhancing this building, not detracting from it.
Thank you. Appreciate those comments. We're going to close the public hearing unless there's anyone else. Oh, I see Rick Sachs has his hand up. Go ahead, Mr. Sachs, please. You need to unmute yourself. I think that's *6, is that right? There we go.
I'm wondering if it has been stated, I didn't see when the drawings went by so quickly. How tall is the fence going to be?
8 feet. Well, it's going to be 8 feet around the water tank and I believe 6 feet in front of the driveway.
That's my reading as well. 6
Are
feet
there any?
for the part, 6 feet for the part that's not the water tank portion.
Right. But is that going around like on the sidewalk, along the sidewalk, a high fence? A fence that would be shielding the house. That's what I'm questioning.
Are you talking about along Calpella Street?
Yes. And is there a fence on Lansing Street?
Planner Kleiser?
The fence on, let me pull up that plan, please.
Could I answer those questions for Rick?
Thank you.
Is that okay, board, if I answer the questions?
Hold on a second. Let's get Planner Kleiser to respond, and then if Ishvi, if you need to make any corrections, you can. How's that?
Sure.
So this is looking south. We have a 6-foot fence that will adjoin the structure and go in front of the entrance to the driveway, shielding the cars, and then it becomes an 8-foot fence, which will block the view of the water tank. And this will line up with the structure.
Mm-hmm.
So Ishvi, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, just to clarify for Rick, the portion of the fence that runs along Lansing and Little Lake that goes around the building remains low and stays as existing. And so this fence really doesn't obstruct the view of the building from the street. It simply seals off the water tank and propane areas and sort of the backyard.
Thank you. Can I pose one more question about that?
Yes, please.
I know when I put up signs on corners, there are certain restrictions that say I have to line from the sidewalk on both streets back 22 feet from where they intersect, and then turn that into a triangle and I'm not allowed to put anything in that triangle because of the way it obstructs traffic. I don't know if anything like that is pertinent here, but an 8-foot fence on the corner seems like it would cause that obstruction for people trying to make a turn.
It's not on the corner.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we have clarification all the way around. So let's bring this back to the board. Thank you, Planner Kleiser, and thank you, public, for weighing in. Board members, your thoughts?
If I may, first, I'd like to clarify that this is in a Mendocino commercial district, and the setback in from the property lines is 0. So what Rick might have been describing is a front yard setback for fence height. And in a Mendocino commercial district, there is not a setback. A property owner can construct a 6-foot tall fence on the property line in the Mendocino commercial district. If you want to go above 6 feet, say up to 8 feet, you do need MHRB approval for that additional height.
Thank you for the clarification. We appreciate your expertise and rely on you regularly. Thank you. Okay, with that clarification, we're going to bring back to board members your thoughts, concerns, issues.
I'll kick it off. I really don't have any concerns about this proposal. I think the proposed plans make sense to me. I don't think they really change the nature and character of the building as such. I think it was clarified that the staircase dates back only to the 1960s. And I think the new proposal is an improvement over what we have now. And I think basically it's a very good design, and I can approve it the way it's been proposed. Thank you.
Thanks, Vice Chair Kapler. Board Member Saunders, Madrigal.
Do we have any knowledge of what it looked like before 1960 or the 60s, or is it?
There's a photo in the packet from.
I don't have my photo with me, unfortunately.
I don't know. It shows the closed-in porch that was referenced.
Are you looking at attachment B5?
Yes.
Planner Kleiser, can you please bring that up?
Yes.
Thank you.
And while he's doing that, I would just say I agree with Holm, and I'm willing to have the application go forward as is recommended.
Thank you.
Okay, it's going to take a second. It is loading.
We're going to B5. Yep.
Oh, there we go.
Bottom of that page. There you go. So that doesn't look period original. I think we call that a scab on.
Yeah. Can you scroll down a little bit further? I'm sorry. Okay.
You can see the left side of that.
Yeah.
Pop out.
Yeah.
With the vent at the bottom.
So I think I'm with Holly and with Holm, but I think given looking at this as well, this is more an improvement than anything else, and I don't think it really impacts the historical look of the building, particularly given that the materials for the doors and the roof, etc., are going to be consistent with what they are today. So I'm okay with this.
Thank you, Board Member Saunders. I was looking through the packet, and actually, if you go from B5 to B6 to B7, B7 has, there's all this historic stuff on it, which is kind of funny. It's an article. Mendocino Historic Review Board decides fate of old Mendoza garage. And I'm guessing that was torn down. It was behind what we're talking about. And you can sort of see that pop out in the gray area in the upper center. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love the second column of the article. Wells and Grimes both voted for the demolition, while Curry votes a strong no. I'm wondering if that Grimes has anything to do with our Kelly Grimes here, which is a little off topic, but it's interesting. I guess he's gone. Anyway.
It's his dad.
Oh, okay. So there's a history of a lot of grime in this town, huh? Anyway, I have to echo the sentiment of my board members. I think that pop out is kind of an atrocity. I like what's being done. I very much appreciate, and it's going to go to another application, a prior and a one that's downward on our agenda, of our residents putting love and time and a lot of money into these structures to make them durable, beautiful, usable, and of period architecture. So I think that everything's being done here. I'm sorry, Mr. Grimes Jr., I can't quite agree, but I think that the improvements make it within the historical context. It's an improvement. It makes it much more usable, functional, and I think it's going to keep it alive and standing for many more years to come. So at this point, I will, did Board Member Magical, did you make a motion?
I didn't, but I will. I'd be happy to
Please.
Make the recommended motion for MHRB permit 2021-0016.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Vice Member Kapler. Senior Planner Cherry, please take roll call.
My pleasure. Board Member Saunders, what is your vote?
Aye.
Board Member Roth?
Aye.
Board Member Kapler?
Aye.
And Board Member Madrigal?
Aye.
The application is unanimously approved.
Congratulations, and keep on the good work. Okay, that brings us to public hearing item 10D. MHRB application 2021-0017. I've got, I'm going to screw this up. Lenahan. It's a historic review board permit for remodel of a home to include foundation, windows, doorways, siding, re-roof, steps, deck, and relocation of fence. And Planner Kelly Ford, welcome to the dais. You are up. Please give us a presentation of, actually, do we have any correspondence or telephone calls that have been received related to this item?
Yes, we do. We have Mr. Jeff Corbet who would like to speak, who spoke earlier in the public comment.
Okay, we're going to put that off to public comment. So in advance of that, can you please give us a presentation of the project? And did you say that, I'm sorry, I didn't catch the name of this person?
Jeff Corbet.
Did he send something in, or is he on the line?
He's on the line and would like to speak. He is in opposition of the project.
Okay, so we're going to put that off to public hearing.
Okay.
So if you can do your presentation and let the applicant do their presentation, and we'll open the public hearing, and this gentleman can then voice his opposition to it.
Great. Good afternoon, board. Callie Ford, Planner 1, project planner for MHRB 2021-0017. The project is located within the Mendocino Commercial District and is located at 45070 Main Street. The parcel extends from Main Street to Albion Street. Dick's Bar is the address currently, but the proposed project is not Dick's Bar and will be needing another address at a later time. But with the address, we typically do not address the project until a building permit is issued. The applicant is proposing a number of items to the remodel of an existing structure, which includes construction of perimeter foundation under the entire structure, to replace windows with double hung, dual pane aluminum clad windows and wooden windows. 3, add doorways. 4, repair and replace rotted siding with similar materials. 5, re-roof with asphalt composition shingles. Color will be charcoal gray. 6, construct new wooden stoop and steps at ground floor entry and construct wooden decks off the south side of the building. And 7, relocate 8-foot existing wooden fence and install gates. And now I would like to share my screen.
Please.
And while this is coming up, I'll just say that I believe we all got to go visit the property physically, a site visit before the meeting.
Yes, with the exception of Mr. Sanders. So here is where the proposed MHRB is. Here is where Dick's address currently is. There's a lot of different structures on the parcel, which has led to some issues with the addressing, but this is where the structure is now. As of now, there are no MHRBs tied to the project as well. So for construction of the perimeter of the foundation, here is the structure that is being proposed. And there's a photo. I'll just scroll down to it here to make it much better. The foundation is rotten. It needs to be removed. And I'll let the applicant speak at a later time, but there is also existing plumbing at the site as well, even though the residence has not been used, has not been lived in the past 20 years, as far as data and records have shown so far. So for the windows, at the site visit on the Albion Street, there's not a lot of work that's going to be done, or new work that's going to be done. The 2 windows shown and the 2 existing garage doors, it will not be a garage, but the features will be updated to still be in the historical context. And the windows shown on all sides of the building. Most of this has taken place, as we've seen at the site, from the inside at the waiting area behind Dick's. And this is where the inside facing, where the tables for Dick's are, where most of the work that is being proposed is being done. We see the doors that are being proposed, the double hung windows, and I'll let the applicant elaborate on that. And this is a aluminum clad window. This is not from the site visit that we took place at. This was for the Blair House, but I just wanted to include this in the proposal here. And for the doorways, I haven't been provided any examples of the doorways that will be used, but I've been told that they will be with similar materials with the historical context. Excuse me. For number 4, repair and replace rotted siding with similar materials. As we noticed at the site, the outside of the building replacement is needed for upkeep to maintain the existing structure. And then again, the foundation. For the re-roof, I don't have any examples from the applicant in regards to the re-roofing. There's a lot going on this project, so I think that there are other examples that were needed first. But the re-roof, I unfortunately do not have any example of, but have been told similar materials and composition with the existing roof. For number 6, constructing wooden stoop and wooden decks. These are already created, but obviously are not able to be used and in great condition. And the applicant is proposing to renovate those to usage again. And this is a fence that is already at the site. Again, no MHRB permits are existing on the parcel. This fence, I believe, is staying as mentioned at the site visit. And here, the 8-foot fence that is being proposed to be relocated already exists, and it would create more of a walkway for this entrance as we saw at the site, and should create better parking for the street there. And that conducts my presentation.
Thank you, Planner Ford. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Mr. Grimes, are you present? Do you have Mr. Grimes present? Oh, there he is.
Can you hear me now?
You are unmuted. We can hear you.
All right. Thank you, Planner Ford. That was excellent. Just a couple of clarifications. As you notice, most of the work is being done on the south side, which is the shingled side of the building, which is basically the backyard. There's, there's a lot of paint that's gone, but there's not a lot of rot in this building. It's in pretty darn good shape. Most of the horizontal siding that you see on the east, west, and the north sides is going to remain. If you notice that if you look at the existing elevations and our new elevations, all the windows that we're putting in are basically in the same location of the existing windows. You notice that some of them are getting to be a little bit bigger. We're trying to get a little more light into the space. The decks off the south side are kind of tipping our hat to the existing staircase and deck off the south side, but we're moving the staircase into the interior of the building and turning into more of a residence. In the past, this was used as it was a garage with like an apartment above, had a little bathroom downstairs, but it was never officially registered or whatever, permitted as a residence. So the new owners, well, I think 7 years ago, they bought Dick's Place. They're, now trying to renovate this last building on their property and turn it into something that's usable. And, look at the south side there. It needs some work. It needs some love. And I think this is an excellent proposal for this building, trying to keep the north side, as intact as possible. We're only removing that man door and the one garage, but everything else is going to pretty much remain. The garage doors will be sealed shut, but they'll still look to be the garage doors. And that's about all. I think the one big issue here is obviously the aluminum clad windows. I think this is a perfect building to introduce aluminum clad windows as opposed to the Blair House, which I understand is an iconic building in the town. To replace that with aluminum clad windows, we'd all be lynched. So this is not the Blair House. This is a dilapidated building on a back alley in the town. There aren't any mullions. In other words, the glass it's a 1/1 double hung window. There's no division of the glass, which is a problem if you try to replace wood divisions with aluminum or other synthetic materials. They just don't look the same. But this is an opportunity where you have a 1/1 double hung window and you can replace it with a white aluminum clad window that would look almost identical, even from 2 feet away. Be very difficult to tell the difference. As you can see from this photo, it's very difficult to tell that that's an aluminum clad window and not a painted window. I think the time has come. I think that I mentioned to the two members, Member Kapler and board member Madrigal when we were on site, that there's a building in town on Lansing that has quite a few aluminum or vinyl windows, and they're all being put in illegally. And as I was driving out of town, I also noticed that Mendo Realty has some aluminum windows on the front of their building. So it's apparent to me that we have lost control of this wood window battle, and it's only us people who are asking for permission who are getting turned down. There are other people in town who are going forward and putting in whatever kind of window they want. They're thumbing their nose at the review board.
So, Mr. Kelly?
Yes?
I don't interrupt, but I am going to, and I want to implore you, request with the deep of my heart to stick around for item 12A, which is our code enforcement update.
Thank you. I will. I just have one. I don't want to talk about the illegality. What I want to talk about is the fact that we've all walked down there with Chair Roth, and I pointed out the windows, and Chair Roth, I believe that you were fairly surprised that these vinyl windows existed in town and right underneath your nose. And my point here is not the fact that we have unscrupulous people in town putting in illegal windows. The fact is that we have illegal windows in town that are not changing the character of the town. In fact, review board members are unaware that they're even there. So I believe
understood. Quick question for you while we're still talking about aluminum clad and wood. You're replacing a couple of doors, is that correct?
Yeah, the doors we're replacing with wood doors, nothing aluminum clad on the doors. It's all wood doors with dual pane glass painted.
Thank you for that clarification. I appreciate it.
You bet. I just want to finish off with the fact that the aluminum clad windows are not going to change the character of the town, and they're going to improve the character of this specific building. Thank you.
Thank you. Well done. I also see that you and Mike Linehan are the owners. Are they present, and do they want to say anything?
I believe that they are present, but I don't think that they want to say anything at this point.
Okay, thank you. We're now going to open up the public hearing. This is a point where we will address any telecommenters that have submitted their form waiting online. I believe that we have one person wants to speak their mind. So when you call and speak, please state your name for the record. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes per person. Speakers are asked to please address their comments to myself, the chair, and refrain from using profanity or engaging in conversation with the members of the audience or staff. And our clerk, who is Senior Planner Cherry, will announce when you have 30 seconds remaining. So please state your name for the record.
So is that, can you hear me?
Yes, that's you, Jeff.
So my name is Jeff Corbett. As introduction, I own the building adjacent to the planned project. I have owned it for 20 years. I am responding to the original agenda item, which states that this was a home that was to be remodeled, and apparently with the site visit and some of the comments you've already heard, you recognize that it hasn't been a home in 20 years. It's been a garage and a storage shed. As background, I own 45055 Albion Street, the building adjacent to the proposed site. To illustrate what I mean by adjacent, I can literally touch the building under consideration while standing on my deck. You can see that in the top-down picture you have. In the 20 years I've owned the building, and I'm told for many years before that, it's been nothing but a storage shed. The conversion of shed to dwelling has me very concerned, and I believe should concern this group. It's a very large change in spite of the changes in windows and other things you're considering. It's an enormous change. The well on my property is a shallow well. As you know, a long time agreement has my well serving both my building and the building behind me, the former Highlight Gallery. During the drought, my well, along with many wells, went dry. My wife and I explored substitute options to deepen our well, relocate it, improve our water storage capability. We were unable to find any reasonable alternative. The increased water use of a new dwelling so near to our building cannot but diminish an already precarious water supply and to those of others nearby. So I urge you to closely examine this proposal. It has not, to my knowledge, passed the Mendocino City Community Services muster, and I think certainly should. I applaud the new owners for trying to update this ramshackle building. It certainly needs some love, but this is an enormous change that's being put before the board as a simple remodel. And I urge you to look at it very, very closely. Thank you. And thanks for the work that you do.
Thank you, Mr. Corbett. I appreciate that. And the MHRB has a jurisdiction of reviewing exterior, I won't say aesthetics, but design to be in conformance within the design review board standards that have been passed and approved by the Board of Supervisors and the district. So in terms of use of property, that's other parts of planning and building services. So our action tonight will not have any influence whatsoever, I believe, to MCCSD nor planning and building services in terms of type of usage. But we do appreciate the fact that, and us all being local on the board, we all live within the village. Water has been an extreme issue. And unfortunately, this coming year is not going to be any different. Many of us have had to purchase water because our wells have run dry. And this is not going to be, it's not going to change for the foreseeable future. So I understand your concerns. I full faithfully understand and believe that MCCSD and Planning and Building Services will look into the use change and take care of that part. So going forward, our board deals with the design and integrity of those design materials and elements on the structure. So with that, I see this Mr. Grimes have his hand raised again.
I do. I just wanted to respond to Mr. Corbett and relieve him of any anguish that we are going to go through the proper channels at the Mendocino City Community Services District. And obviously, you know, my clients, water is an issue for them as well. So please rest assured that we will follow all the proper protocol and not here to make enemies, obviously, of the neighbors.
And like I said, thank you, Kelly Grimes. Any action we take tonight is just one step in the multitude of processes that have to go through to get approval to move forward in the project. So ours is just one step.
Thank you.
So with that, I'm going to ask if we have any more public comment from Molly. Not Molly. God, why do I keep doing that? Brooke. Brooke. I'm gonna write down Brooke. Thank you. Brooke Molly. Do we have anyone else? I'll get used to it at some point.
I don't believe we have any more requests to speak.
Okay, thank you. So this comes back to the board. So board members, thoughts, questions, concerns, issues, please weigh in. I think Vice Chair Kapler is unmuted.
Am I? Yeah.
Do you want to weigh in for?
Well, I just had a couple of questions. Do we know what the historic status of the building is? And what is the actual height of the building that we're talking about, the overall height? I don't think that information's been provided.
So as for the existing building now, there is no information found on the historical context if it is a historical building. And after the site visit, we are looking into obtaining the height restrictions for the building, as mentioned at the site visit.
very strange, isn't it, for a building like this in Mendocino not to have been included in the historic register of buildings?
So there was, and I'm going to jump in here. I don't know if Planner Ford is familiar with this as of yet. Circo, I can't remember her first name, but in the 70s did a review of all structures within the village, or not all. Took upon herself to make a record and do research on each of the buildings. She did not get through, I think she got through about 75% of them. And obviously this was not one that she hit. So we don't have all the historic information on every structure in the village, unfortunately. But in your retirement, if you want to jump on board and start doing some research, I'll put you in touch with Karen McGrath at the Kelly House.
Thanks.
But I see that within the pamphlet there is some information, but if staff has anything else, please add to it.
And Kelly's raising his hand again. He might have more information on that as well.
Please go, Kelly.
I just wanted to add that the height off of Albion Street there is 21 feet.
28 feet?
21 feet.
21.
2-1.
Okay.
And Holm, tell me, enlighten me, what are you thinking about with that height restriction?
Well, we're raising the height of the building, and I was just curious whether we're going to exceed the 28 feet limit that we normally have, but Kelly is saying it's only 21 feet. So I'm surprised, but okay.
It's only from the back side with the south side, it's only 25 feet. And we're certainly not going to raise the building any 3 feet. We're going to raise it probably 8 inches or something like that. We're just trying to get it out of the dirt and basically level, ground floor level with the building right next door.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The other, basically, I don't have much of a problem with this project and the proposals. Many of them make sense to me, and I mean, we're pretty much dealing with a derelict building here, and the proposal is a vast improvement over what we have at the moment, and certainly from Albion Street, it's going to look very much like it basically looks at this time. So I don't think there are any major changes there. The big changes are obviously the decks in the back and somewhat the side of the building that's now going to be the entrance. The big issue with this proposal is the aluminum clad windows. And I'll be very frank, I'm torn on that issue. And perhaps others could voice their views on it. I know that our guidelines say no aluminum clad windows. At the same time, I appreciate the fact that these windows are going to look an awful lot like like wooden windows, except that they're clad in aluminum. I think it's going to be difficult to see the difference. And at the same time, we're dealing with weather conditions in this town. And so I think the arguments in favor of aluminum clad windows should be listened to. So I'm torn on it, and I'm just curious what the other members of the board think about that.
Can I just interject one thing here?
Yes, please.
The guidelines do not say that aluminum clad windows are not acceptable. They say raw aluminum windows are not acceptable. And there's a big difference. These are not, raw aluminum is what's across the street from Blair House. It's the anodized aluminum. These are painted white. They're going to look just like white painted wood. Just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, I do think that the guidelines are trying to avoid the raw aluminum you know, they look cheap. They look in contrast to the historical character of the town. Yeah, Home, I'm pretty persuaded. I'm honestly pretty persuaded that the painted aluminum windows that are done in the exact same character and structure of the original, they're actually wood windows with aluminum on the outside. I'm pretty convinced, especially in this application where it's going to be on the south side of the building, not visible for the street, that I do not think it will detract from the historical character. My question, maybe to staff, is that, like, is this an action that we can take as a historical review board? I mean, if it says we can't do aluminum windows, like, does there need to be some sort of change made to the guidelines if we do, or does this body have the leeway? Should we find it acceptable? Because I do think it's better for maintenance than wood windows. We did receive, when we saw the Blair House, we did discuss some long-term maintenance concerns as far as ability, if the powder coating gets altered, it could be an issue. But generally, I think that this is going to become more and more common. The aluminum clad wooden windows are going to be what's more available to the general public.
As chair, I'm going to jump in real quick. I usually let everyone weigh their opinions. I don't try to cut off staff, but I've been thinking about this an awful lot as well. I would like to make a proposal. I know what we're talking about, aluminum windows. They're the ones where you can see the pitted marks and they're thin rails across and they look like not the right thing. I'm gonna spare my expletives. What I would propose is that I would like to revisit this part of the code or guideline. And because things are evolving, rather than make an exception and let that drive everything, I would like to take the forward step to create a subcommittee to rewrite those guidelines. I don't think it would take more than a meeting, and come back with revised guidelines that could, if agreed upon, allow aluminum clad wood windows or some aspect thereof. And that way we can set it down as revised guidelines if that's where we want to go. And then we can make an approval to a project and multiple projects going forward if that's what this board wants to do. I don't feel comfortable making an exception to the guidelines as written but not quite understood to become a precedent for everything else. So rather than granting an approval for an aluminum clad wooden window, I'd rather see us modify the guidelines and approve an application under modified guidelines if that's the direction we're going to. And I do agree with the Blair House, and not that it's iconic or not, it has nothing to do with that. I think it's just that the owner understood that there is more maintenance on aluminum clad wooden windows because of the powder coating. So if it gets worn off, you're gonna have to pull the windows out and repowder coat them, put them back in, which is huge, and that happens every 20 to 30 years. Whereas a wooden window, if painted regularly, lasts 80, 90 years. So I understand both sides. I just, my preference as one of the members of the Mendocino Historic Review Board is to create the guidelines that we want to follow and approve a project within the guidelines rather than make an exception and have that become the rule without positively thinking about the ramifications and going through that process. My 2 cents. So I know I interrupted Board Member Madrigal and Senior Planner Cherry. So Juliana, if you want to weigh in on that, or if we want to pass it off to Board Member Saunders for his thoughts, whatever.
I was just going to offer to throw up and on the screen and share from the design guidelines what the words are in the design guidelines. If either the chair or one of the review board members would like to see the design guidelines language, I'm happy to put it up.
Let's take that. I think I'm familiar with that. What I'm wondering is, given those guidelines as they exist, could this application be approved?
Yes, it is the review board's decision whether the materials harmonize within the district or detract from historic resources. In this instance, the building obviously is old, was not included in the original survey done some 40 years ago of historic resources, and the applicant has not provided any information to help the review board know what are the features of the building of historic value. So with the information that the review board has, they can come to a decision that individually and together as a board, whether the proposed changes are detract from other buildings within the district and harmonize with the architecture of the existing building.
So Senior Planner Cherry, for the record, can you please put up the language so we can have it on the recording and for future reference?
Okay, so what I share screen. Let's see. So this is from, it's posted online. And this is a 7-town plan, the general plan, and it is the 1987 historic review board design guidelines. The design guidelines are there to help the review board and applicants, property owners understand the standards that are provided for in the zoning code. And here I have number 4 up, windows and doors. The proportion and relationship between windows and doors shall be compatible with the architecture. The proportions and relationships between windows and doors and of each to the structure as a whole shall be compatible with the architectural style and character of landmark structures and with the surrounding structures within the historic district. Metal or plastic frames are not acceptable. Shutters should be inconspicuous as possible. Raw aluminum combination storm windows or doors and plastic contemporary coverings are not acceptable. Windows and doors may have accent or ornamentation when it is integral to the building design. And then there are standards for residential windows and commercial windows. Residential windows are typically tall, double-hung wood frame windows. Dormers, oriel bay, bow, and small accent windows are common. Window panel and wood carved doors are appropriate. Single pane picture windows, horizontal awning doors, sliding windows, and windows with horizontally oriented panes are not appropriate. Metal doors and sliding glass doors are unacceptable. In commercial windows and doors, commercial display windows are appropriate on the ground floor. Upper story windows should be vertical. Doorways may be recessed. Then just above this section on windows and doors is a section on exterior building materials. And here they talk about like horizontal siding. And in the second paragraph, imitation or synthetic materials such as aluminum or vinyl siding, imitation stone, imitation brick, used brick, and it has a long list, shall be deemed inappropriate. Painting of new structures is encouraged. So these are really the core paragraphs relating to use of imitation materials, and then also specific guidelines to windows and doors, that metal or plastic frames are not acceptable. Raw aluminum combination storm windows or doors and plastic contemporary coverings are not acceptable. And windows are typically tall, double hung wood frame windows. But I would like to complete with saying that the review board, in making their decision, decides whether or not materials detract from the architecture of the resources within the town or harmonize within the district and the other structures within the district.
So can I ask a question of the chair?
Yeah, please.
So I just want to clarify, I appreciate that you're wanting us to be consistent and not like come up with decisions for individual properties that are not, that are maybe a change in the plan, it's called those descriptions. Are you suggesting that we would approve this permit without addressing that window concern?
No, what I would envision.
Are you suggesting we postpone this permit?
What I'm envisioning is that rather than making the exception the rule, that we not postpone.
May I offer the word continue?
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that, Brooke. We would continue this application to next month. And in the meantime, convene a subcommittee that would discuss how to revise the wording on those doors and windows such that we can, if we so choose to do, looking at technology the way it is, from a distance, the aluminum clad seem to work. When you look up close, they don't really work to me, but I don't know how many of us actually look up real close. I don't want to influence that conversation, but I would rather continue this application for a month, convene a subcommittee to propose language to clarify, because this is not going to go away, especially if Mr. Grimes is here, which he is. He swore he's going to follow this to his grave. I would like to be able to address this full-frontedly, and if we so choose to revise our guidelines to bring it up from 1987 to current day with current manufacturing, and then come back to this application. And if we revise the guidelines to allow aluminum clad wood windows, approve the project under those new revised guidelines.
I would be interested to hear what the applicants thought about that, just because I heard from Planner Ford that they are unable to get an address or move forward with certain aspects until this is done. But it certainly potentially could be more favorable. I think you're very optimistic to think that this would not be I think a committee could come up with recommendations, but
Sure.
I'm not sure if it'll be contentious. I can tell you that right now. I can imagine.
I don't know.
Mr.
Vice Chair Kapler, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I understand your concerns, and because the guidelines say what they say, and I would prefer, if we could, to amend those guidelines. But the problem is, I don't think that's something that's easily doable. My understanding is that this would take a long period of time to actually amend the guidelines. And if that's the case, and perhaps Juliana can shed some light on how this could be done. But if that's the case, I mean, we can't keep people waiting forever.
Understanding that, I think maybe if we had a subcommittee that met and made a proposal to this is how we interpret those guidelines, we don't have to change them, but we can go to this interpretation. And like I said, I just don't want the exception to become the rule. I'd rather take a forward step and say, okay, you know what? A subcommittee of the Historic Design Review Board met, they interpreted the guidelines as such, and under this interpretation, we then feel that this is appropriate or not, and would support this application or not. And at least that we have some findings that future meetings and future board members can look back to and say, oh, well, this is what they meant. This is what they thought about. They actually took the time to really consider this and make some findings / recommendations to move forward on. I don't know that we really need to change the guidelines, but if we could come together as a group and say, hey, this is how we're interpreting them, we all agree, and this is how we then took on this application. I would feel much more comfortable with that than just railroading it through and say, oh, well, you know what, this recondition of this garage / house, having another architect or applicant come forward and say, well, you let them do it, why can't we do it? I just don't want to go there. I want to be able to stand on the ground and say, we considered this, we thought about it, and this is what we came to as a decision.
Could we ask Juliana to draft some language that would make aluminum clad wooden double hung windows an option within our interpretation of the guidelines?
What I'd like to is
and for consideration next time.
So I'd like to take it off of staff's hand, and I'd like to have a subcommittee of us come together so we can make recommendations to the staff so that I don't want to put the staff in a position where they have to try to figure out what it is we're thinking. I'd rather give them direction, have a subcommittee come together and give recommendations from a memorandum to staff to put in forth of us so that we can either vote up or down on it. And if it votes up, then they've done their job as staff. We've done our job as making decisions. And then we can use that as basis for either approving or denying applicants. That's my 2 cents. And I think Callie had her hand raised a while ago.
Hi, yes, I just wanted to respond to the addressing comment. It's just much easier to assign an address once the building permit is pulled. But we can't assign an address before the building permit if that is easier for the public. It's just when it comes to utilities and services, if the building is not constructed and it has an address, it can lead to issues down the road. So it's just much easier when it's the building permit.
So if we were, and this is a question for both Kelly and Juliana, if we were to continue this application until next meeting, is that going to hold up any of the other processes through planning and building services?
I would defer that to Juliana. I'm not sure.
So I have a couple of thoughts.
Yes, please.
I with Callie and Mark Kleiser and Kelly Grimes and the property owners met at the site, and we talked about their goals for developing the property and restoring use of this building. I think that they have a long range plan, and they wanted to do the low-lying fruit first, which they felt was the MHRB permit, because they will also need to get a change of occupancy permit and a building permit. So a categorical exclusion potentially. Of course, they have to talk to the water sewer district. So they realize that today the review board's action isn't going to have immediate effect on their project because they have more hurdles to go, more application processes to go through. So my first thought is to inquire whether they wish to have a decision today, or if they aren't okay with the concept of continuing the matter. So that's one of the considerations I'd like to suggest the review board consider. The other is the idea of a committee and giving direction to staff, I think is really a great idea. I think we should talk about that maybe under matters from the board and not so much under the item for consideration today. And one of the suggestions that I would have if you do form a committee on the design guidelines is maybe include some of the previous retired review board members. I'm thinking like Kathleen Cameron, who lives in town and actively looks at these applications as they come to the review board. She may have some insights and some suggestions for the review board to hear in a committee format. and maybe other members of the public would like to as well. So the committee may want to have like small public hearings to hear comments.
And then probably in addition to that, we probably want to get some of the people who are involved in this process on a regular basis, like maybe Ishvi or Kelly or maybe even Deborah Lennox.
Yeah, yeah.
But I don't think it needs to be a drawn out thing. I think if we sat down and had one meeting, we could sort of hear concerns and write up something short and get it back to staff so that we can keep this going. And we do have another item on agenda, which is code enforcement update. And I know Kelly
Project here too.
Yeah, another project. And I know that Kelly walked us through and he pointed out the building, and I think it's great, as I said before, that individuals are investing in their community and making these buildings standing long term. I love it. I think it's great, and I don't want to slow it down. But at the same time, I don't want to be railroaded one way or another, and I want to make sure that our guidelines are understandable and that we don't have people trying to do stuff without approval, and that we don't just sort of like give up what we're here for, which is to maintain the historic district.
So can I ask for a clarification from Juliana? I don't think I really heard an answer to the question. If we continue this, does that prevent legally the owners from going ahead with other permits? That's a kind of yes/no question.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, in fact, staff encouraged them to apply for multiple permits at the same time as MHRB. For example, they need a categorical exclusion to convert the structure to a residential use. And typically we like to see PBS take action around the same time as the MHRB permit so that the expiration periods overlap. When an applicant like this goes forward with the MHRB permit far in advance of applying for the CADX, the MHRB permit could actually potentially expire before they get the CADX, and then they have to go back. And so we try and avoid things like that. So we encourage them to apply for all those things at the same time. So yes and no. What's holding them back is that they do have other permits that they need to obtain before they can proceed with the project.
But
the MHRB permit is just one.
We would not be holding them on. If we, okay. So maybe I haven't said anything yet. Maybe I could comment on where we're at.
Yes, please.
I sympathize with Ian's point that, I mean, sooner or later, we're going to have to grab this nettle. Might as well be now as later, because it keeps coming up. So we need to do something other than just keep doing exceptions or whatever. And I look at the language, and it's really not clear to me what a metal clad window is. We're talking about metal clad windows that have, really good coatings on them. And technology has moved forward, so I think it probably is time to go back and look at the language. The other thing is, I think I learned, and I wasn't at this particular site visit, but at the Blair House site visit, that we're missing, or it's not really clear, that one of the main aims is to make the window look like previous windows. And I don't think that's very clearly written into the language, if I read it right. One of the things that Mr. Wickersham brought up was that, you have to have the same features and doohickeys you can get that on these aluminum clad windows these days. So that may be something we want to add to the mix as well. And his point about, there may be other ways to solve this problem is a good one, but I still think we're going to keep coming up against this. And I think I agree with Ian. Sooner or later, we've got to address this. We just can't keep kicking the can down the road. So I'm in full agreement with his suggestion, and knowing that we don't hold people up. I mean, this may be a good time to do that, because listening to the other things that have to be done for this building, which are probably extensive, it's going to be some time before work actually starts. So that's my opinion.
Thank you.
And I would just like to respond in response to all of that. the applicant, Kelly Grimes, and I'll let him elaborate. He has been working on his groundwater extraction permit and looking at the future actions that he needs to take. So I'll let him elaborate on that as well.
Yeah, the applicant has a long way to go before and after this meeting. So yes, Kelly, please.
Yes, thank you all. Yeah, it's a long process, but if you put in an MHRB, which is $800, and the change in use permit, which is $8,000 at the same time, and the MHRB says, no, you can't do what you want to do, you wasted $8,000. So although Planner Cherry has, in an ideal world, that would be great, but it's not the way it works. You got to go to the review board first just to get permission to do what you want to do. And so this is where we always start.
Kelly, I totally respect that. You and I have had many conversations about this. As I've put forward, and I think Alan has supported me. I'm hoping I have more support in the other two. I just want to, as you do, I don't want to ask for forgiveness. I want to ask for permission. I want to set up so that it's pretty darn clear where we stand and what we're doing, as opposed to letting the exception become the rule. And I know that you're going to keep fighting this, and you're going to keep asking for aluminum clad.
I'm with you. Can I just finish?
Hold on. And if it's this board's desire to include aluminum clad wood windows as part of our guidelines, I would much more approve this. I want to approve this application under those interpreted guidelines, rather than having this become the beginning of an open door to something where, oh, well, you approve this application, why don't you approve mine? And why don't you approve mine? Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I totally understand the predicament that the four of you are in. This is a big dam, and the first one through is going to bust it open. So, we are not interested in hanging around waiting for the guidelines to be amended. My understanding in 25 years of doing this has been everywhere from, I've had review board members pick up the guidelines and throw them in a wastebasket, say that they are simply that, guidelines. So this is not the code. There's the zoning code, which is the code. Now, I think the last writing of the code, it adopts the guidelines as part of something, but the guidelines are simply guidelines. It says asphalt shingles are allowed but not encouraged. So, the town used to be wood shake roofs, every house 25 years ago, and the insurance companies shut that down. So the guidelines are guidelines. You four people have authority to approve anything you want, but I understand if you approve aluminum clad windows, you're opening up the floodgates. So to make your life easier, and I appreciate and I celebrate the idea of having a committee and forming some sort of guidelines about aluminum clad windows, because they're not going away, but we would like to withdraw them on this project. So we will switch the windows to wood framed windows, and the doors will be wood framed doors. And I hope that makes your job easier, but I still want to see us committees, whatever it takes, to rewrite the guidelines, bring them up to date so that we can use some more modern materials. Thank you.
Kelly, I very much appreciate that. And I appreciate the fact that you come and ask for permission, not forgiveness. I have a whole level of respect for you for doing that.
Thank you.
I still want to create a subcommittee. I think we can do it really quickly. I think we get through this. I don't think we need to modify our guidelines. I think without guidelines, we have no rails. So I know that there's some board members who just throw them in the garbage, but as long as I'm on the board, and especially as long as I'm chair, I'm not willing to do that. We need something to work off of so that the public knows where we're at and we can be consistent. And like I said, I think if we issue an interpretation of the guidelines, I think that would be sufficient to stand ground on for future applications so that it's clear. I mean, I want us to be able to look to the public and say, this is our expectations. Yes, Holly.
So just to clarify, it sounds like where we're at, I think there is an interest of this board to, yes, basically we'd be putting like a memo that we could connect to the, to the guidelines going forward. I would be supportive of that. But what I'm hearing from the applicant on this application is that they're willing to pull that part, pull the wooden windows. So I'd be happy to both move forward with this application, and I'd be happy if the board wanted to do a committee separately, concurrently, we would do that maybe in the matters from the board.
Thank you, Alan.
Yeah, clarification from Juliana then, because I think I heard two different things. I heard Kelly say that if we held this up, they would be held up because they didn't want to spend $8,000 on a permit. And I thought I heard Juliana say that if we held this up, there would be no other stops to them going forward with anything else. I'm a little confused by that. I'd like that to be clarified. In other words, are we the first step in the process? And if we don't approve, are people prevented from going forward in some way, be it financial or whatever? Or if we don't approve, can they still continue with their permit process and not lose anything? I'm still a little unclear about that particular point. And it doesn't apply now because, as Holly said, if they change back to wooden windows, it's not an issue. But I'd like to understand that for future reference, because this is something, as we both said, it's not going to go away. It's going to keep coming up. So Juliana, would you like to comment on that?
I'm trying to think of a good metaphor, and I think puzzle is a good metaphor. This isn't like a train where there's one track and you go from station to station. This is more like a puzzle where you have multiple pieces and they fit together to make a whole thing. The pieces are building permits, coastal development permits or exceptions from them, a CADX, an MHRB permit. You can apply for all three of those. There's no required sequence for them. We're not going to issue the building. We are happy to review the building permit, but we are not going to issue it until you have your coastal permit or your MHRB permit in place. So you can apply for all three of these things. You can apply for your groundwater extraction permit in the sequence that you'd like, but you won't get your building permit issued until all the other permits are in place. So it's more like a puzzle that you fit the pieces together. And as Kelly Grimes did point out, the MHRB permit is frequently the more affordable of all the other permits that you need to apply for.
I understood that, but the implication of his comment was that if he didn't have that, he might spend $8,000 needlessly. And I'm confused by that comment if it's not a train.
Yeah, I'm not really certain that, for example, the categorical exclusion permit, which is what most people in town use to, say, convert a commercial structure to a residential structure or to build a new single family home. That permit in 2021 was under $700 or $800. A building permit, you do pay a fee when you apply, but you actually pay the majority of the building permit fees when you pick up your building permit. So you could apply for a building permit and pay some of those initial review fees. But if you end up pulling your building permit, you don't have to pay for those things that you're not going to be doing, right? And I think the building permit fee in the town of Mendocino is probably the most expensive when you're doing a complete remodel. I don't know, Kelly, have you worked on building permits? Do you know when the building permit fee is paid? I believe it's paid when you pick it up.
I'm not sure at this time. I don't work that much.
Yeah, you don't really work on that either. Yeah, neither Kelly or I really work on building permits. But what I do hear frequently from my colleagues who do it is that they collect the majority of that fee at the time that the building permit is ready to be issued.
Okay, I'm going to do a quick loop around. I think we have two issues on the board. I heard the applicant, Representative Kelly Grimes. changing the application to do wood windows and wood doors. And I think within that, we have application MHRV 2021-0017. And I think we ought to take a vote. We need a motion and a second on that. And I think we're all on the same page, if I'm reading this correctly. And then I think in terms of the subcommittee, do we put that under matters from the staff, or do we talk about that after we take our vote?
Let's add that to matters from staff later in the meeting.
Okay. So do I hear a motion from HRB 2021-017 to approve the permit with the modification that windows would be wood and not aluminum clad?
God, yes. I'll make,
Vice Member Kapler, God, yes.
yes. I'll make a motion to approve MHRB permit 2021-0017, subject to the windows being wood windows, the doors being wood doors.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Juliana, roll call, please.
All right, happy to take a vote. Board Member Roth, what is your vote?
Aye.
Board Member Madrigal.
Aye.
Board Member Saunders.
Aye.
And Board Member Kapler.
Aye.
All right, so the project as amended with wood windows and wood doors, wood window frames is approved unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you, and I would like to thank Mr. Grimes as the applicant's representative for being flexible, and I would implore him to become part of a subcommittee that could be formed later on in this evening's meeting. Yes, Holly.
Could we take a short comfort break?
Yes, could we do that in 5 minutes, please? Juliana? You're muted.
Trying here. Yeah, let's, happy to take, what do you want? Do you want to reconvene at 5 o'clock?
Let's do 5 o'clock.
All right.
8 minutes.
You want to do less than that?
No, let's do 8 minutes. That way everyone can stretch and get a drink. And if they need to make a call, they can make a call, and we'll be right back. And 5 is an even number. How's that?
All right.
Thank you. I think it's been a good meeting so far. We are now approaching our last public hearing item, 10E, MHRB item 2021-018, Look in Kavanaugh. A Mendocino Historic Reboard application to modify exterior architectural features of the MHRB permit 2021-0003, an approved single-family residence, water tower deck, shed, and ancillary structures. This is a category 2A historic resource. So, Planner Ford, where are you?
Actually, it's Planner Cherry.
Oh, okay. Planner Cherry.
Yeah.
Do we have any correspondence or telephone calls that have been received related to this item?
No, I don't believe so.
Okay, so can you please give us a presentation of this amended, interesting, fun application?
Sure, be delighted to. Juliana Cherry, Planner 3 with Mendocino County Planning and Building Services. The applicants applied for building permits to construct the home approved by the review board. The review board's action was April of last year. And the building plan set includes some minor refinements to some of the windows, doors, decking, and some other aspects of the project. These changes were not part of the MHRB permit 2021 number 3. And unfortunately, Mendocino County codes do not accommodate amendments to previously approved MHRB permits. Therefore, applicants need to request the review board consider changes shown in their application. This staff notes that with the revisions, the house and ancillary structures continue to satisfy the development standards such as minimum yard depth, maximum height, and lot coverage. The applicants, the property owners, are proposing revisions to their approved plans, including removing a hallway gallery deck, which is 24 square feet, and enlarging the deck by 11 square feet, convert a hallway gallery south door to a window to match the north window, enlarge the pump shed from 36 to 48 square feet, add a 24 square foot mechanical to the west elevation, and convert windows letter V and letter P to fused glass instead of clear glass. The final two items are to change window number 1 to a double hung window instead of a glider window, and to add copper gutters as shown on the plans. I'd like to just briefly share the site plan with you so you can have an idea of where the improvements are located. So here is the site plan, and Deborah Lennox, the architect, has put some clouds in areas where they're going to do some work. So here is the mechanical area, right off the driveway. The driveway is off Albion. Then I'm going to let maybe Deborah Lennox go over the site plan and the changes in more detail, but I wanted just to show sort of the general location. Here is the main part of the residence and the water tower to the right. And then in between is this breezeway connecting the water tower to the residence. And there's some improvements here that are also, they're requesting the review board's consideration. My presentation is very brief, and I know that Deborah Lennox has been patiently waiting for this item to come up, and I'm sure she's happy to answer any questions that the review board might have.
Great. Deborah Lennox, are you there ready to help us out? You are muted. Is it *6 from a cell phone? There you go, you're unmuted.
No, I'm on, I found it.
We can hear you.
Okay, great. Well, I lost the screen share from Juliana, but at any rate, thank you, review board members, for taking a look at this project again. I appreciate that. I just want to say right off the start, it's definitely time to revisit the design guidelines from the 80s. And I appreciate that you're going to be updating some of the materials to reflect more current available materials. So we are.
And you realize with that comment that we're going to be calling on you to become part
Yeah,
of the
I know you're going to call me, but we'll see. The other thing, I didn't realize you couldn't amend an MHRB permit. So we aren't making significant changes, but I guess there's enough changes here that we wanted to come before the board again and run them by you. I think everyone is familiar with the project. We went in for the building permit and ended up having a conversation with our HVAC provider we're going to be doing radiant floors. And he needed more room for boilers, and we also needed more room for the sprinklers. We are going to sprinkle this, and we needed more pump space. So we enlarged the pump house for the sprinkler to accommodate the sprinkler pump, and we also added a mechanical shed to the exterior on the west side back from the street. I don't think you'll notice it much. We attached it to the porch that was approved to go there, so it blends in. We also, when we moved that shed from the front yard to the backyard. At one point it was in the front yard, the one in the southeast corner.
Hey, Deborah, there we go. I was gonna say it would be helpful to have the plans up, and Juliana's doing that right now.
Okay.
So maybe you want to talk about your clouds.
Yeah, so the clouds are showing the so I just discussed the pump shed by where the little hand is. That's the shed that had to get larger in order to accommodate the pump for the sprinkler system. And then the cloud adjacent to that is that mechanical room is for the boiler for the hot water heater and radiant floor system. And they can't really go under the house. They have to be outside, and the closer to the house, the better. So that seemed like the best location. Then if you go down to the one in the center there, when we had the shed in the upper right-hand corner in the front, we had a doorway and porch there that we would go, so we could go from the living room down directly to the shed. But now we're going to go out the back door to go to the shed. And it just seemed like there were a lot of doors. So we eliminated the porch on the south side and changed the door from a door to a window to match the window on the north side, which you can see that on the elevations. So those are the main changes on the site plan, which now we can go down to the and the rock dissipator. That's part of Cal Green as far as dealing with the drainage. And
what is a rock dissipator?
It's just like we have them on Rotary Park. It's just a couple of rocks in the ground where the water comes out of a drain.
Okay.
It's a Cal Green thing. And then here's the changes on the elevations showing the, you can rotate it. Cool. I'm rotating my head. There we go. Okay, so, all right, so now on the south elevation, which is looking from Albion Street, that area right there, there was a door and a window to a little porch and steps down. So we eliminated the little porch, but we kept the opening, so we changed it to a door, and it's still set back from the corner of the tower, so it still has a reveal and a shadow line, but it doesn't set back as far as it did before. And then to the right of that, we're on the proposed west elevation. That's the mechanical closet for the radiant floor system. And to the right of that is, well, so we'll talk about the fused window. That's the fused glass window, but the one to the right of that is the double hung window in the kitchen on the first floor. And then the second floor with the highlight, that pattern was there before, but now in the fabrication of these, they were like a stained glass window. We were going to do them as inserts on the inside with a clear glass window, but this one is operable, and Jorgen from Art Structs can make this as an operable glass window with the fused glass. So we were just changing from a stained glass insert to a fused glass operable window. And it'll look a lot, you won't be able to tell the difference looking at it between a stained glass window or a fused glass, but they're thicker. The glass is much thicker. They all melt together. There's no metal in it. The black lines are actually black glass. It's pretty cool. And then going down to the east elevation, that window there also was going to be a stained glass window insert on the interior, and he can make that into a, instead of having all these layers of windows, he can also just do that as a single layer with a layer of tempered, I don't think it's tempered. There's a layer of glass that makes it WUI compliant that will be laminated to the fused glass. So it'll be very thick. And I think that's it.
Deborah, can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
So I also wasn't aware that you couldn't just, I wasn't aware that you'd have to come back, before the MHRB. Did you have to pay a fee again?
Yeah, it's like a brand new permit. That's something, if you're going to be looking at changing the regulations, that would be nice to add that in there. Yeah, I don't know if that ties to the design guidelines, but in order.
I don't think it does, but that seems like something that that seems unfortunate.
Unfortunately, it's part of the master fee schedule, and if you get Brent on here, he'll fight you tooth and nail because of their budget. They're arcane rules. I think it's ridiculous. But that would be definitely, if we want to do a second subcommittee that talks about fees and makes recommendations in terms of fees and processes. Yeah, Holly, you're on it. But no, that's sort of it's a sidestep issue, and it's pretty, and Juliana can back me up on this. It's pretty clear about how long a permit lasts and what a permit is and when it expires, and if you want to do something different, then what it costs and what that time frame is. So
I think, if I may, I think there is a logic to it. The review board is to review and consider whether exterior changes to architecture remain relevant within the historic district. Do they harmonize? Are they disruptive to the historic architecture and features within the district? When someone wants to change what the review board has previously approved, they should go back to the review board and ask them to consider that. With this applicant, their initial application was a full fee because they were proposing a new residence, and coming back to how the review board considered these small modifications, they paid a different fee, a much smaller fee, but they still did need to come back to the review board for their consideration of these architectural changes.
Thank you.
But I just wanted to say, I didn't think the issue was really the fee, it's more the time. And, but I think the timing is going to work okay with us. So, so far, so good.
Thank you. Have we gone through the changes?
I think that's pretty much it.
Okay, great. Process, we're going to go to public hearing, and then we'll bring back to the board. We can ask questions of the applicant and staff, and then we can make a motion. So at this point, Juliana, do we have any telecommenters that have submitted their form and wanting to make comment on this application?
I'm seeing that Kelly Grimes would like to speak on this item.
Okay, and I guess the question is, okay, go ahead. Should I be asking Brooke this question?
Debbie Lennox's project?
Yes, go ahead, Kelly.
I didn't want to speak on this. I'm sorry, my hand never got lowered.
Nope.
I think it's a fantastic project.
and there's the comment.
Well, thank you, Kelly. I thought you were really smart to go to wood windows on the last one, by the way.
Okay, enough of this cross conversation. Okay. I'm going to put both of you on the wood window thing. You guys are both nailed. Okay. So Brooke, do we have any other public, or Julianne, do we have any other public comments? Any errant hands that are raised? Okay, seeing none. Let's bring it back to the board. Board members, go ahead. Weigh in on your opinions. Vice Chair Kapler, you are unmuted, please.
I don't have any comments. I guess I'm getting tired. It seemed to me that the changes are not really significant and certainly not objectionable. So I don't have any problems with this proposal.
Thank you. Board Member Saunders, you're unmuted.
Yeah, me neither, actually. I think it's good. I don't have a problem at all.
Board Member Mandrill.
I just have one comment, which is that I was within the mailing distance of this project, but since I opined on it before, I didn't think it was necessary for me to recuse myself. I'm in no way benefiting from this property, which is down one street and more than 3 blocks away. So
you have no financial gain to be made from your decision.
So I just thought I would mention that since I was within the mailing zone, for the notification purposes, but.
So it's your understanding that regardless of your decision, you have no financial gain to be made?
Correct.
Okay. I do have one design comment. And Juliana, can you bring up A3.1? Proposed west elevation?
A3.1, right?
Yep. Yep.
You wanted to look at the west?
Yep.
Okay,
can you blow it up at all?
Yeah.
So when there we go. When I stare at this elevation, that one window on the first floor with the cloud on it in the middle, that one, to me, it stands out as like one of these things is not like the other, right? Is there a reason we couldn't emulate the other 2 windows, the one to the right and the one above?
I believe this is a kitchen window, and I suspect a kitchen sink is on the other side of the wall.
But still, isn't there some way to? We got everything in the guidelines is like vertical double hung, and this is like horizontal double hung, and it's kind of like a little pencil in the eye to me. Not that everyone's gonna be staring at walking through town, but this is our job. Is Deborah there?
Oh, there we go. Hello?
Thank you. Hello. So I'm wondering that, did you hear my comment?
Yeah, I did. And we've gone around and around about these windows. It's over the kitchen sink, and this is the one the clients chose. And John is on the phone. I could give him a quick call if we want to check in and do something. It was a slider window before. And so they were trying to go with more double hungs, but it could be 2 double hungs mulled together.
Even if we dropped a vertical mullion down the center, that would just.
Yeah, we could leave it at the same operation with them and do divided light. I'm sure they'd be fine with that.
I mean, does that make sense to you, Deborah?
Yes, it totally makes sense.
It doesn't need to be perfect in line. It doesn't need to be the exact same size. It doesn't need to be the same symmetrical, but I'm thinking just in light of everything else, just dropping a vertical mullion down the center would, the corner of me who's OCD would make me sleep better at night.
Okay, let me just ask John. He's here. Hold on. You're fine with that. Okay, he's fine with that. We're just gonna put a divided light on that window.
Thank you. Otherwise, I think it conforms to our design guidelines. I think it's in harmony. I love the fact that it's actually moving forward. I haven't been by the site, but I hear that demo's in progress. And it delights me that we're actually going to get something other than a fire hazard in that lot.
Can you still hear me? Yeah, so so the clients are fine with doing the divided light, and the demo is actually complete. So
oh, wow.
Walk by there, you're going to see a lot of fiber rolls and straw.
That's great.
It's been great to see, Deborah, seeing it take shape. I'd be happy to make a motion.
Yes, please.
I would move to approve the modified features for MHRB permit 2021-0018.
With the addition of the west elevation vertical mullion on the kitchen window?
Correct.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, our Vice Chair Kapler. Juliana, do you want to remove the drawing from the screen and take roll call, please?
Sure. All right. So we have a motion to approve the project with the divided light over the kitchen. Board Member Roth, what is your vote?
Aye.
Board Member Saunders?
Aye.
Board Member Kapler?
Aye.
And Board Member Madrigal?
Aye.
Okay, so it passes
Yay.
4-0. Thank you very much.
And Deborah, thank you for hanging in there. Appreciate it.
I wanted if the next thing on the agenda is matters from the board, we do have some staff that has been standing by to give the code enforcement presentation. I don't know if the review board would like to accommodate staff and take that a little early, or if they'd like to just do matters from the board first.
No. Let's bring forth. Look at my agenda.
I know, lots of pages.
I know. Let's bring forth 12A code enforcement with the memo and the report from Ms. Gretchen McLaughlin, please, Supervising Code Enforcement Officer.
Or perhaps John Burks. I'm seeing John Burks from Code Enforcement is online.
Perfect.
Good afternoon. Are you able to hear me okay?
We can. Thank you, Mr. Burks. Appreciate your patience.
Absolutely. And I apologize if my video is not coming through. I'm not really sure how to remedy that. It looks like I only have my mute button. But anyway, thank you for your patience. Good afternoon, board, chair, and community. This is John Burks, Code Enforcement Manager. Code Enforcement provided the Town of Mendocino activity report update in a memo format, which was included in the agenda. I'm hoping that that information should more or less speak for itself. And in light of the time, I'd like to just make myself available to field any questions, should anybody have them. Obviously, it sounded like there were some questions from earlier. Perhaps I could share any relevant information that might be helpful at this time.
Thank you. Board members, Holly Madrigal, please.
Thank you so much for this. And of course, I can't find my memo, but I got it. I'm wondering if it might be possible. I appreciated the breakdown. I wonder if it might be possible for the code enforcements where there's findings, not the ones that are dismissed, but if there's ones where there's findings, if it's possible for us to get some sort of quarterly summary of what the code violation is or something. I didn't know if we might be able to work on something like that.
If I may respond through the chair, you mean just the result of the investigation? Is that what?
Or even what the code enforcement issue, so if it's like a deck that doesn't have or I don't know, like something like
a breakdown
like
of what
one-line description
of if there was a violation, confirm what the nature of that violation is.
Right. So maybe like
I think even the complaints themselves. I mean, in 2020 there were 12 complaints. It'd be nice to have just in written format what those complaints were, what the resolution was. I think that's what you're getting at, right, Holly?
Yeah, because then we would know, we would be able to say if someone comes up to us on the street and says, oh, there's a someone's putting in a mobile home on this corner, we could say, oh yes, that has already, we've received other comments on that, or, it would just give us some more information.
Yeah, as staff resources and time allow, I will do my very best to provide that.
That'd be very helpful. And I was here November of 2019, and I was here even before that. And I remember one of our board members was railing, which I will never do against code enforcement because I appreciate your efforts. But it'd be nice to have, as Holly said, board member Madrigal, to get quarterly reports with details on a regular basis. And that way, if one of our constituents says, hey, what do you know about this? I'd be able to look in the eye and say, well, I know this is going on, that's going on, that's going on, instead of going, I don't know. Makes us a little more intelligent and be able to respond to those who approach us. So thank you, Board Member Madrigal. Vice Chair Kapler, your thoughts? You're unmuted.
Nope, that sounds like a good idea to me.
Alan Saunders?
No, I have no further comment. I think that is a good idea. So, Mr. John Birch, I think you've been praised for giving us the report. We appreciate it, and we love to see these coming forward. And if you can ask your supervisor to allow them an hour of your time every quarter to break down what the complaints are, what the addresses are, what the resolution was, that would be absolutely fabulous.
Absolutely. I'll see what I can do. And then we can take a look, next quarter and tune it up a bit from there.
Perfect. So this is March, April, May, June. Report in June of 2022.
I do believe that we're already scheduled for something. It might be a little sooner than that, but I'll double check. I'll make sure that it's, as close to quarterly as possible.
Quarter's great. If it's sooner than that, we're not going to complain, I promise.
Fair enough. Well, maybe we could have a standing arrangement where if I'm able, I'll submit the information as early as it's available, and then the actual report portion we'll try to keep to quarterly.
That sounds great.
Perfect.
Thank you for your time and your patience, and thanks for following through, and say hi to Trent from me.
I certainly will. Thank you so much.
You bet. All right. We're going to jump back to 11A, matters from the board. So, board members, thoughts, concerns, issues, projects?
Nothing beyond what we've discussed.
Okay. I got a nod from, oh, there we go, Ms. Madrigal.
Yeah, just the I'd be interested in having a committee come forward with a recommendation after like a public meeting. We can't have more than two of us on that, but so that we could give some, like, provide a memo of interpretation of the guidelines in regards to aluminum clad windows.
Did I see your hand sticking up then?
You didn't, but I would be happy to.
Is there anyone? So let me, okay, we'll get there in a minute. Home, Vice Chair Kapler.
I didn't have anything.
Okay. Which brings us to, we're getting to the end. Wow, this is a longer one. I'm impressed.
So I do have a question. Sorry, I do have a question on the, I'd be happy to do that, especially if someone else wanted to do it with me. My question would be, how are we going to communicate? I mean, I guess this would be a question for Juliana. How are we going to communicate to the public to let them know that if they have opinions on it, that they should weigh in?
I think what we need to do is we just need to reach out to those who we know who would be part of the community we'll have a public hearing when we have the agendas and the item agendized.
Okay.
But I think, and I'd be happy to be part of that with you, Holly, unless Alan or Holm they feel like they really need to be there.
Right.
But I think we should
You can reach
invite.
out to the former board members, contractors. I mean, that's primarily it, like contractors, former board members, and interested parties.
I think those who appear in front of us most often would be Kelly Grimes, Ishfielm, Deborah Lennox.
Ed O'Brien has opinions.
He does. I think we probably need to include the almost mayor. Yes, Ed O'Brien, prior staff member or prior board members who weigh in a lot. And Juliana, you can help me with that. Maybe Juliana, you and I can put together a list and go through it. And we can put this together and maybe call a meeting. I know that I've got all day Thursday and Friday up to 3 o'clock in the afternoon free. So Juliana, you and I should get together. You tell me when you have time to talk about this, and we'll draft a list of members. We'll run it by Holly. We'll put together a date and times, and we'll put it out there and get people come in. What I want to do is, I know that it takes some, I guess we've jumped over the fence right now, but it takes some time for you to do your memo. So our next board meeting is in June, or no, I'm sorry, April. But given the time that you need for advance, I'm thinking if we can do it in March, since it's still early, and get it to you, and you can put it on the May or June agenda.
Most likely the June agenda. Things for the May agenda are due on the spring equinox. I don't know if you will have completed your committee work by March 22nd, but I can
Do you have
add
a time for a phone call tomorrow?
Wednesday.
Thursday.
Okay.
Does Thursday work?
Yeah, it works great.
Well, we'll go back and forth. We'll figure it out. Wednesdays are awful for me.
Thursday's fine.
So yeah. Okay. I think we jumped over the fence. We got our, go ahead.
Well, when you're done with matters from the board, we have one more matter from staff.
Okay, so I guess matters from the board, we're going to have a subcommittee set up. This is going to be Holly. Let me ask Alan and Holm, do you have a burning desire to be part of this?
I would really like to, but my movements over the next couple of months are going to be a bit random, so I don't think I can.
Okay, Holm?
I can be part of it.
Do you want to be, or can you be?
No, I mean, I don't have a burning desire. No, thank you.
Okay, so let's call it. Holly and I will be the subcommittee on this, and I'll reach out to Juliana on Thursday, and we'll. In the meantime, Juliana, if you want to put together a list of names, and you can email me them, and we can have a conversation on Thursday, and we can figure out dates and times for this. How's that?
Perfect.
Great. Thank you. Thank you all. We've done our code enforcement. Matters from staff, please.
So the other matter from staff is to remind the review board that April is Historic Preservation Month. Every other year, the review board considers and nominates projects in town for our preservation award. This year is a year that we will skip. Last year we gave those awards and we thought we would present them when we resumed to public hearing, and here we are. We're still doing virtual teleconference meetings. So next month, I just wanted to remind you that it's Historic Preservation Month.
Juliana, please add that to our conversation on Thursday. I agreed to pick up the tab for the plaques, which I still intend to do. And I would like to award them. I don't know as chair if I will ever convene over an in-person meeting, but whether or not we'll still make it work. So we'll, I think the impetus is to remind us that they're still outstanding. Is that the concept?
Mostly, I just want to remind you that next month is Historic Preservation Month, but it also reminded me of other things. So on Thursday, let's talk about whether you'd like to present them during Historic Preservation Month. in April, that would be an option. It's up to,
Agreed.
I think, you, the chair, when you'd like to do that.
Agreed. Okay. We have reached the end of our agenda. It is 5:35 on Monday, March 7th. Thank you all for your ability to hang tight in this. Great discussions, great movements. We'll go forward. And if there's not any objection, I will adjourn this meeting until our next meeting, which is going to be April. I'm looking at Juliana to help me out here.
Oh, let me get my calendar out. When is April? April 4.
April 4th, 2 p.m. virtual meeting, Zoom. Thank you all for your time. Have a great month, and we'll talk to you all soon.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.